Yeah. That's what he did. He bumped up. All right, way to go live. Way to go live. Look at Klein. He's just trying to trump me already. Chris comes flying in at the last second. Holy shit. We got a major event going on tonight. Big time. So I brought in the heavy hitters tonight, as everybody could see. So tonight was kind of something I got to thinking about it just because I got questions the other day on a few videos, and it got me thinking about like some of the value, like whiskey and value, and how people really truly interpret it. And it's clearly all over the board. So I wanted to talk to some of these guys, get their thoughts on what some of this stuff like really was, like what your interpretation of value bourbon is, and not just that, but how people justify the value of something, what you're willing to pay, and why you're not willing to pay some of that stuff for whatever the whiskey is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be bourbon. It could be any whiskey at all. So, all right. So let me, before we get going, let me say hi to a few pre-gamers before we dive into all this fun action. So what do we got here? All right, Kelsey, how's it going? DC, my man, we got some good stuff for you tonight. I'll pop it up in a little bit. If anybody hasn't seen the that S show that happened last week, it went in a lot of different directions. I don't think anybody had any idea it was going where it went, but it turned out.
The S show?
The S show. It was turned into a bit of one, but
we're PG-13 till 8:05.
That's exactly 8:05. Yeah, we got 3 minutes to get the serious stuff in, so we got to hustle here. Right. Yeah, if we only got till 8:05. Everybody in the chat, you guys know who you are already, so I don't even have to say. I appreciate you being in here. So, all right. So, whiskey and value. Who wants to go first? Who wants to give me your definition of whiskey and value, and how do you interpret that? Anybody wants to go?
Let Dusty go, since he spends thousands on Dusties.
Dusty, go ahead.
All right, so what I may see in value is maybe something completely different, but obviously, I'm really into some of the older bourbons. Now, when I hear somebody say value of a bourbon, it's a little different for me, because yes, I do spend. For instance, I bought a very old Barton today that was from the late 70s for around $300, right? So I personally see value in that, right? So if you put the dollars aside, okay, just to the side for a minute, like I see value in that. I enjoy the way the Dusties taste. I enjoy the history behind them. Okay, so really, it's what it means. What it really means to me. If I find value in it, that's one thing. If I open the bottle and it tastes like shit, right? Then you know what? That's on me. I wound up spending that, but you know what? I'm comfortable with spending that on something that I enjoy almost all the time. I mean, there's been a couple that I don't, but that's kind of where I see this whole thing going, is what I'm willing to spend on something I enjoy. You look at Fourgate, okay? That's what, $200 a bottle roughly. There's value in Fourgate. Clearly, I think all of us can probably agree with that. So it's really what we find it's what we find what we like in these things. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the interpretation of that is, completely subjective, of course. And
yeah,
when someone says, that's overpriced, or, I wouldn't pay that, I always try to get from that person, well, like, why is that? And then, what is it that you're willing to pay? Like, I don't know if sometimes people get like so like brand loyal that they refuse, kind of like teams and all that. You get so locked into a particular brand that you don't want to, maybe spend the money on, whatever that may be. But I'm always fascinated to hear like why people either think something's expensive and then vice versa. So, because like, look at, so Jason's got a good one right there, like Smoke Wagon. Chris did a good thing today, and early times. I mean, there's so many ways to go and ways to spin this stuff. It's interesting. Kleiner, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, since I've literally put no thought into it, let me give you something. So when you're talking about value is different than what you would pay for something, in my opinion. So, like, the one question I get asked all the time is, what's your favorite bourbon, or how much would you pay for this, or is this a good deal for me to buy? You can't ever figure out what's a good deal for somebody to buy because I don't know what your finances are. I don't know what is expensive or not to you.
Yep.
But when it comes to value, when I'm buying stuff that I want to drink and I'm going to drink plenty of it, like a bottle that Chris has in front of that Early Times Bottle and Bond is probably the best value in the game. Yeah. So a lot of times what I'll do is I will buy something and I will, that too. So I'll buy something and then I'll ask myself, is this worth 10 Early Times? If I could buy 10 Early Times, 10 liters of Early Times for what I paid for this bottle.
Yeah.
Is that something I should have done or I will ever do again? And if the answer is yes, it's definitely worth it. Then I'm like, hey, that's a good value to me because I know that's a great bottle based off of what I could have spent that money on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly it. Like, I mean, like the other day I was having a conversation with somebody and it was, what they interpreted the bottle to be expensive. It was, I mean, it was about $170, but then the issue came up about, well, would you spend $300 on Kentucky Owl? And the answer was yes. I said, well, I mean, how are you justifying $300 for Kentucky Owl as a good value when you thought this other brand for $170, wasn't? So that's where I struggle with like the value and like maybe how people are just interpreting it. So that's kind of what got me to thinking about this whole thing.
I feel like you're putting too much stress on the word value. It's not necessarily the value of it. It's what somebody, how bad do they want it?
Yeah.
Like Chris and I have had this discussion back and forth. He knows I want a Weller CYPB, right?
I wondered how long it would take to bring that up.
I want it because I don't have one. I have all the rest of them, and I don't have that damn white label. So I'm going to pay way too much damn money for that just so I can put it next to its brothers over there and never drink the shit.
Well,
it's just one of those things that it's irritating to me at this point. So I'm going to get it.
And here's my argument to that is that's exactly it. Is that if you spend, let's just say $500 for it, okay? If someone says to you that's not worth $500, we get it. But to try to argue that with someone, it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So that's what got me thinking a little bit about that. So
Hey Bill,
how's it going?
Good, guys. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. All right. So this is a good question. So I wanted to get you in on the deal because if there's anybody who truly understands the pricier side of whiskeys, you do. But aside from that, you not only do you own a brand, but you also do independent reviews of other things. So your interpretation of value or the value of whiskey or like is something too pricey. I guess I just wanted to get like maybe your thoughts on that.
So my thoughts is that value is entirely subjective, 100%.
Yep.
Because, I pulled a few bottles out here and like one of them is the old 6-year Heaven Hill Bottle and Bond.
Yeah.
It's 6 years old. It was $12-13 at most. That's a great value, right? I mean, everyone would agree that's a great value.
Yep.
Also, but depending on your situation in life, a $75 Elijah Craig barrel proof might be a great value.
Yeah.
Likewise, a $50 Knob Creek single barrel of 12 years old might be a great value to you. So value to me is very subjective, and it means something different to every person. So I'm in a weird situation where I have a label that's very expensive. And I know it. I wish it could be less expensive, but like we don't base our price based on what we want to charge. We base on what our costs are plus about 20%, and that's what Foregate is. You know, it's very expensive what we do. So value is very subjective to me. I like it. I like it, Dusty Dan. To me, value is very subjective because there's a very big difference between retail price and value, and it's not really connected because if you distill your whiskey, if you're Heaven Hill, if you're Buffalo Trace, if you're Jim Beam, if you're one of these people that have these massive distilleries all over the place, your ability to put out a whiskey at $50, to me, if I put out that same whiskey, is probably going to cost you $175.
Yeah.
And I don't want to charge people that much. It's just what it costs me. They're not going to sell it to me and allow me to put out the same whiskey that they make for $50. So it's entirely subjective. And to you, by you, I mean the consumer. If you're a consumer, if you're someone buying something off the retail shelf, you have to decide what's value to you.
Yeah.
Right. What is value to you? Is value something that's rare that you can't find? If that's the case, it might be buying Elijah Craig Barrel Proof at secondary for $125. I don't know. I can't tell you what your value is. I can tell you what I value, and I can tell you different things that I feel like should add value, but I can't tell you what value means to an individual.
Yeah. Well,
I think you nailed it right there. To be honest.
And that's the thing. I mean, we all probably hear it like, all the time, like that's too expensive or, for what it is. I mean, I think a lot of it just becomes how you somehow justify this. And again, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's all about how much money you've got. And if you can even afford a $200 bottle, or if everything you buy is a $30 bottle. So I get it. So,
well, the other thing he said, Scott, was that I totally agree with is it has to do with your palate. I personally won't even pay $12 for Heaven Hill White Label. I hate it. So from a value perspective, that's not a value for me because it's not something that I'm even going to waste $12 on. And it's just how you go about what fits for your palate and what you like, and that's something that just doesn't mesh with me.
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference between like shelf cost and value. Exactly. I can't tell you what you should value. I can only tell you what the shelf cost is and what I value.
That's what I was gonna bring up. I mean, Bill nailed it on the head when it comes to subjectivity. It is very subjective. Now you have bourbons that a lot of us talk about that, whether you like it or not, whether you like those bourbons personally or not. I mean, we're talking Wild Turkey 101, Early Times, Knob Creek Store Picks, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. We know that those are great values, just on paper. But again, you're looking at Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is still $65-$70. Somebody might not want to pay $30 over a bourbon, more than $30 for bourbon. So again, your financial situation comes into play, but there are a lot of great bourbons on the shelf that are, great values, no matter which way you look at it. Bill brought up some great brands, Beam, Wild Turkey, Heaven Hill, they could put out brands and sell, you still have Evan Williams bottle and bottom on the shelf for $17. White label, 4-year-old, 100 proof bourbon. It's a great value compared to the market today. Yeah. But then Scott, to your point, you brought up Kentucky Owl earlier, which is a $300 MSRP.
Yeah.
So, and that calls into the sticker part of it. So now you have a sticker price of $300. Now, while that might be too expensive for an average bourbon drinker, somebody with that type of wallet or that type of want that wants that bottle on the shelf, whether they're going to drink it or use it as fucking furniture, and just look at it, they're going to see that MSRP. Oh, if I can get it for $300, that's an amazing value. Why? Because the bourbon market today, the valuation of bourbons in today's market is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So, and we see it in secondary, we see it at stores. People will get, I mean, I've been seeing with Eagle Rare lately. I mean, this bottle right here, which is, I mean, $35 normally. Now this is going up in stores because it's Buffalo Trace and everyone evaluates Buffalo Trace as something off the register. Poor Mike with his CYPB. I mean, that bullshit is selling for $800-$900. Why? Because people are seeing it as value and rarity rather than what's actually in the bottle and as a collector's item.
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
you said, Jason, you just nailed that word, is the rarity. Rarity. I completely agree with that. People have the fear of missing out on something that's rare, I believe, and that plays a huge part in that as well. Agree.
Yeah, I think that Woodford Double Oak really proved that. I heard it sold out in like no time, like a couple hours. The double oaked.
Hey, and there's a good point, because when you look at that 375 for $50, okay, you multiply that times 2, that's $100 bottle. Some people may
Nice
say,
job, Scott.
what's that?
That was quick math. Good job.
That was
buddy.
good math.
Yeah, it was. I'm
Yeah.
on. Don't
proud of you.
don't ask me what 3 of those bottles would be, by the way, but no, it's so somebody may say, well, I wouldn't pay, or maybe someone's interpretation of $100 bottle for a whatever 90.4, whatever they bottle all their stuff at. You can see. I mean, it is. I mean, I know it's subjective, but here's one of the things that kind of got me thinking about this the other day was someone like left a comment on a video and just says it's a good bourbon, but not $170 good. And I always want to like respond back with like, well, if that's the case, what is a good $170 bottle?
Right.
So
what part was that? Was that the Blue Run you did?
It was.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, the other thing I got to thinking, Bill can comment, whoever wants to, but wherever it comes from, distillery A, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but there's so much more that goes into my interpretation anyway. Is there so much more that goes into it than just the age of whatever that whiskey is? There's where it comes from, like what they ultimately do with it. I mean, so for somebody just to say that it's just like too expensive or it's not $170, I always want people to leave like more, like, well, why? Like just to say it's no good or whatever. When people say it's trash or whatever that may be, I always want more from some of that.
Well, I mean, again, $170. That's a good amount for anyone on any bottle of bourbon. But then you have, like if I'm looking at, a bottle of Blue Run and then a bottle of Foregate, I'm probably going to go for the Foregate because they're doing something with it for that money. That's different.
Yep.
Whereas Blue Run, I know it's masterfully blended, by Jim Rutledge, which is great. And I can totally appreciate his expertise in the whole Nike bottle design.
Yeah.
That's all great, but I'm not drinking the bottle. I want to drink what's in it. So, for me, I'm going to look at those equal factors just, when I'm looking at a bourbon. But again, it just comes down to what you feel is most important. Some people might see a sourced bourbon and might not want to touch it because, it's sourced. They didn't make it themselves. They see sourcing as evaluation rather than a value. So,
What if they had a really cool sticker on it? Then what? Then would you pay that for it?
Well, only if the sticker has wax and glitter as well.
Okay.
All I heard from that is that Foregate is better than Blue Nun. I kid. I'm joking. Yeah. So I mean, you're 100% right. So if you distill the whiskey, it is particularly if you are a heritage distiller who is a massive distillery, who your cost of putting whiskey in a barrel and keeping it in a barrel for 20 years is nothing. It's virtually nothing because you're doing hundreds of thousands of barrels a year. If you're sourcing it, if you're buying sourced whiskey, you are paying a multiple of what a retail barrel would cost. So if you are a sourced company and you're trying to buy whiskey, if you're buying a 6-year-old whiskey, you can expect that your barrel of whiskey would cost roughly what buying a barrel full of 6-year-old bottles would cost, roughly. So the retail price and the value have to be completely separated here because, again, I said when I started out that like value is very subjective, and I mean that. If you can't afford a $200 bottle of whiskey, I don't want you coming for Foregate. I really don't. I don't want to put you in a hard spot. I don't want you to like save money and put money away and not save for your kid's education or something so you can buy a bottle of Foregate. I'm just saying that like we don't one thing to know, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, is that particularly in Kentucky, because we know all the markups in Kentucky, the price you pay at retail is double what we sell it to a distributor, roughly. So if you pay $100, we sell it to a distributor for about $50. If you pay $200, we sell for about $100. If you're sourcing it, if you're putting it in a second barrel, if you're blending it, if you are blending multiple barrels together, all those add cost. And you can't just like say, hey, well, Heaven Hill puts out something that costs $50, so we're going to charge it $50 for ours. Well, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. We can't put out if Heaven Hill puts out a bottle that is age stated and it's $50 and it's a 10-year Henry McKenna. I literally cannot get a 10-year barrel of whiskey and put out a $50 bottle. I just can't do it. It doesn't work. I would lose. We'd be out of business in a week. So it's weird. You talk about how you get these questions, these comments all the time about how it's not worth $170. Well, I get that every day.
Yeah.
Every day I get emails about like, why do you charge so much? I'm like, well, I don't charge you $200. I'm sorry it costs you that much.
Yeah.
But if I could charge you less, I would. We literally take exactly what it costs us and we add a certain markup percentage, and that's what it is. Period. I wish I could compete with Buffalo Trace. I wish I could compete with Jim Beam, but I can't. And therefore we don't.
Well, and I think that's a valid point, so like when people say that, for instance, like, it's a good bourbon, but not $170 good or whatever it may be. I think you got to consider the source, when you're comparing Buffalo Trace, to Foregate. I mean, honestly, you're comparing apples to oranges in terms of what they can do.
Cost-wise,
yeah, cost wise. Yeah. And like, if you could do and charge what Buffalo Trace does for things, maybe that's a bad example because I know their secondary market's crazy with things. But from an MSRP standpoint, if you could do that, you would. But you would only be able to do that because of volume.
Right. And I'm not saying that everyone is in the same boat as us. I don't know how everyone else determines their prices. I just don't. I know that most people are pretty much in line with what we do. Again, we use secondary barrels, and so it costs us more to reblend and re-agitate all the barrels and put them back into tanks and put them back into bottles. All that stuff costs money, right? So I understand all of that, but I can't compete with someone who it costs them, the cost of them buying a barrel is $200. The cost of them filling that barrel is probably another $4. I can't compete with that. I just can't. And then, 6 years of aging, 10 years of aging, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to line up with the cost of someone who is a massive distiller who an individual barrel costs them next to nothing.
Yeah. Cameron, Chris, what are your thoughts?
What's that? Who got called out?
Either Chris, Cameron, whoever. What are your thoughts? Like when you
have a drum off tonight, by the way.
Cameron, wake up! You're on Scott's show.
Oh man,
you're up, Cameron.
Hey man, I'm trying to keep it frosty after last week. I was a shit show at the end. I didn't remember the end of that night.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah. I don't think anybody did, but I'm always curious, like when you're standing at a liquor store and you're trying to determine, what am I willing to spend my money on? What's kind of going through your mind? Like, what is that?
I think one thing for me, we're talking a lot about value and to kind of understand and to appreciate and learn about what you do value. I mean, a lot of that comes down to just training your taste. And for me, like when Jason was talking about the value on paper, when you look at what Wild Turkey 101 is, whether or not you like it, the price and what it is on paper, there are so many of those, the Knob Creek 15 store picks, which unfortunately are going away. But those are the bottles that I go to tell people like, hey, try this first if you're looking for this flavor profile, and then start to figure out what you do value. But I think it's important to kind of talk about that as well, because not everybody can pick out 10 tasting notes in a whiskey. Now, besides that, I feel like, for me, I went out and I did a lot of whiskey hunting when COVID hit. As a full-time musician, I had a lot of time on my hands at that point. So I was running around chasing the trucks, having a dandy old time coming from Scotch World, where everything just sits on the shelf at a marked up price anyways. And, that got old for me, and I started getting into the secondary thing only for sake of convenience. Once gigs start coming back and I don't have as much time, I am willing to pay a markup on certain products because I do value them because they align with my taste. Like, I don't like to pay $135 for Stag Junior, but if that's the only way I can ever get one, I like Stag Junior when it comes down to the Buffalo Trace portfolio. I think that's the best value for me in there. And likewise, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, like I said, the Knob 15 store picks, those things I'm willing to pay those extra markups for. But like, you know, Chateau de la Baude, when that skyrocketed, when other bottles like that go way up, I love it, but I don't love it that much. So,
Chris, what about you?
So I appreciate what Cameron just said, particularly that last brand that he mentioned. So you think you have a set of values and worths for your whiskey and what you're willing to pay. And, you know, I'm one of those guys that's like, you know what, man, I'm a cost guy. If I'm paying more than 10, 20% over retail, I just feel like an idiot. I don't enjoy the whiskey when I pour it from a secondary bottle. You know, I've been there, right? Like I've lived in that space. That's my idea of value is, did I get this at what the manufacturer intended it to be sold for? And then when I go from there, how good is the whiskey inside, right? I mean, it has to be something that I enjoy for it to be worth something to me. Now, you know, you factor in all kinds of things, age, sourcing. You know, I really appreciate Bill's position that, you know, the smaller guys that are sourcing and doing incredible things with their barrels, that shit's expensive. It's not fair to some of those guys that are sourcing to say, oh man, I can't believe your whiskey's $200. You guys are just trying to make a mint. You know, you guys are probably just going to sell off to one of the majors and then, you know, take all that money and run. Well, no, go to MGP, go talk to a barrel broker, go find out what a frickin' barrel costs.
Yeah.
From MGP, from even Cascade Hollow. You know, that it's not cheap. So once I've determined that I bought the bottle for what I feel like the MSRP was supposed to be or thereabouts, what is the flavor to me? And then beyond the flavor, because flavor is the most important thing to me, besides feeling like I got ripped off. Because if I feel like I got ripped off, it's not going to taste good.
Yeah.
But is this a rich bourbon? Is it a complex bourbon? Is it a bourbon I want to go back to? That's a lot of where my value comes from. It's what I like. But then you've got the things that are tangible, objective markers. How old is this? Where did it come from? Is there a story? Was it double finished? I mean, you know, there's so much about a bourbon experience that goes beyond just yummy bourbon. Yeah. So, you know, one of the things that I've been chasing lately is these 15-year-old mystery bottles. You got the Old Bones, you've got Doc Swinson's 15, you've got the Prideful Goat, the Bull Run 15-year Kentucky. These are hypothetically from similar vats. Hypothetically, I've paid between $110 and $200 for these bottles that are incredibly similar in flavor profile, and I feel like they've all been very worth it because they provide an exceptional, complex, great flavor to me personally. Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean that somebody else is going to grab that bottle and go, oh my God, $200? Are you high? Yeah. No, absolutely not. It may be way out of your price range. It may be, you know, it's out of my price range, to be honest. But because there's an element of tangible or intangibility to those bottles, we don't know if we're going to ever see those vats again. Yeah. These guys got super lucky to pull these vats. They're 15-year-old Kentucky bourbon. That in itself is saying something very special. What if we never see them again? Am I going to buy one? Am I going to buy two to have one to put back? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because it's worth it to me to invest in the potential scarcity of the future.
Yeah.
I would also add, you know, context. So like there's a value bourbon for when you're having friends over for like mixers. There's a value bourbon for someone, you know, like a couple of good friends to come over and sip like something along that $30, $40, $50 line. And then there's, you know, there's a value bourbon that you're going to find for like that special occasion, like, hey, your buddy's getting married. Let's share a dram, and you know, it's got the taste buds for it and that kind of thing. So you know, it's all a lot. Context plays a big part of that, and I think that's where you know, it's great having you guys out here to kind of lead the way and show the way. Like, you know, this is worth that value to me. You know. I'm not
the
by
best-
any means like
Yeah.
but you guys say it's good. If 5 of you say this bourbon's a good bourbon at $100, well then I'm expecting that bourbon to be a darn good bourbon.
Well,
I've always said from the before we even started 48, I've always said that you don't have to agree with my palate. If I review a bourbon and I love it or I hate it, whatever, you have to agree with my palate. You just have to understand it. And if you don't like my palate, I don't care if you don't follow me. Find someone you do agree with. If it's Drums and Drams or Hot Buttery Rolls or the Mash and Drum or Scott or Dusty Dan, I don't care who it is. Find someone you agree with. And when they taste something and tell you this is fantastic, then you have to determine what's the value of that to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If they say this is fantastic and it's $300, is it worth $300 to you to taste something that's fantastic? I don't know. I can't answer that for you.
Yeah.
But if it's Bill Straub that you're following and you're listening to my reviews or something like that, and you never agree with what I say, then fucking don't follow what I say.
That's simple.
I mean, hey,
There's a ton of truth to
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times I've heard from people, my palate aligns with your palate. So if you say this is something that's really good, I want to buy that. There's a lot of times I listen to people, I try some of the stuff that they say is really good, and I don't like that. So I'm like, all right, so my palate doesn't align with him. Not that I think he's wrong. It just that's how the whiskey affects him and how he tastes it.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you totally.
Yeah, like everybody else said, it's really subjective to what you like and what you find value in everything. Like people may disagree with me when I buy some of these older whiskeys because I've heard comments say like it probably tastes like a basement and all that, but that's not always the case. I mean, you're going to find some of that older whiskey that does it doesn't taste so great, and I've had that before. It happens. But on the flip side, I've also had some of the best whiskey I've ever tasted that's been older as well. And you can look at the people of the likes of Minnick and my friend Kurt who've put some of these older whiskeys in some of the best tasting whiskeys that they've had. So it is all subjective when it all comes down to it.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's just like, if Dusty Dan's, if you listen to his reviews and you taste his whiskeys and you love what Dusty Dan likes, then fucking listen to Dusty Dan and pay attention to what he says and buy what he says he likes.
Yeah.
If it's within your price range, I can't tell you what's in your value.
Yeah.
What's in your price range or anything like that. But
Yeah.
that's all I say. You don't have to like what I say. You don't have to like what Scott says. You don't have to like what Jason or Todd or anyone on this thing says. But find someone that you tend to think your palate aligns with. And if they say, hey man, you gotta buy this, then consider it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think down to its core, value for me overall, just if I'm looking at a shelf, value to me is getting more out of a whiskey personally than what I think I paid for it. And then for me, that's to me, that is just the base standard definition of what value is, especially when it comes to bourbon.
Yeah.
You can put all these other factors into it when it comes to price, what your financial situation may be, and that is all a contributing factor. But to me, if I'm getting way more in quality than what I think I paid for it, what makes sense to me for my financial situation, then I deem that I crown you a good value. But that's that's going to be different for everybody.
And I would say you can't say it any better, because if you go to the store and you look at something and you decide that's what I'm going to pay for it, you know what? Then that's the fucking value of it.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. You're going to buy that. It is what it is. If it's $200 and the guy next to you just said you overpaid and he just bought, Klein's favorite $15, white label, then it is what it is. That's exactly what it is. So, I mean,
yeah. And then just like, it's like prime time, he brought it up earlier. One of his unicorns is the CYPB.
Yeah.
So to him, and like mine is getting a King of Kentucky one of these days at some point. That's like that's the bottle I want so bad.
There you go.
I can never get
one tonight.
Yeah,
well, the funny thing is, though, Jason, you want a King of Kentucky because you want to drink it and you know that that's an amazing bottle. Yeah. I stubbornly want that CYPB. I have drank it. It's not fantastic. It's the one bottle that I don't have of that line, and it pisses me off. So I'm chasing it for a whole different reason. Yeah.
That's the thing. You have that too. You have not saying you have disposable income, but I'm just saying people with disposable income that is willing to pay a premium for highly allocated and hard and rare bourbons, that is a value to them, no matter what the price is, because they want to put it on their shelf, complete their vertical, show off their family. This is all my Wellers. This is all my Pappies.
It does fall somewhat into that value category because I'm not willing to pay that.
Yeah,
I'm still trying.
He's not. I can tell you he's not.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I know what it's going for on secondary. I am not willing to pay it. I could have had it 10 times over if I was, but that's part of the hunt for me right now is that I'm trying to find it reasonable because I know that it's not worth it. I know it's not. I want the bottle at a reasonable cost because I know it's not worth it.
I think the Whiskey Dick just put in the comments, and this is something I completely agree with, and let me know if you guys agree too, is he said that we all drink whiskey as a hobby and that he thinks it's fair to say that we all have some disposable income. And I completely agree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, to have the amount of bottles and stuff, we all know we have a shit ton of bottles.
Yeah.
So to have this, collections like these that we have, we have some disposable income. We're going to be spending it on whiskey, obviously. We also have our channels, so we have to keep creating content. So that's their part to it. But you also have to look at through the lens.
Yeah. And there's the other thing. I mean, you kind of nailed that too. So you wonder sometimes is our perception of like value like skewed because of a bit of like what we do versus just the common, bourbon purchaser, So
I don't know.
I'll tell you, I had some guys over this afternoon, and I'm sitting there and I'm going through my cigar blend batches, and I showed it to them, and they were like, "Oh, this is amazing whiskey. How much does it cost?" And I reviewed the cost, and they were kind of like, "What the hell? Why would you buy that?" And I literally have never had a cigar blend offered to me that I didn't purchase.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, your value, the whiskey's worth certainly is de-inhibited by the level you're at in your collection and what you're used to paying. You can become desensitized, just like you can be desensitized to higher proof, to higher price for sure.
Right.
And that's one of the things too. As I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the whiskeys that I grabbed. I grabbed several whiskeys that I deem to be value whiskeys.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking more like, what's a steal of a deal on the shelf? And I grabbed some, and I think that they are really good deals in whiskey. But the more I think about it, the more I think that a valuable whiskey to me is not necessarily a deal. But there are some, and I think it's important to have criteria. What are you looking for? Like if I see distilled in Lawrenceburg, Indiana on the back label of a whiskey, it's going to get at least a second look. If it's of any age at all, it's getting a second look. If it's finished, it's going home with me. So,
and Chris, I think that's
so glad to hear you say that.
What's that?
I mean, I think that's a good. I think that's.
I've not found any Foregate in person, but when I do, I'll grab one, buddy. I'll send you a picture.
Yeah,
Please do.
a picture. Yeah, it may not be a picture of the whiskey, but it'll be a picture of something.
No nudes. I do not accept nudes. I'm just saying.
Well, you may not accept them, but you're gonna get them.
You give it the old Four Gate crotch shot. I call it a 5-gate.
Yes. It's like a 4.5 gate. It's fine.
Yeah,
That might be the best thing I've ever heard in my life. Jason.
yeah,
A 5-gate.
yeah.
Oh man,
That's a good
fantastic.
yeah.
Klein, I think you need to show off that shirt, buddy. I think you got to take it off and put it up in front of the camera.
Hang on, let me get this
If
up.
Scott can figure out how to highlight it, you guys can see it.
That's fantastic.
Scott, just click his window.
Yeah, just click my window and bring me up in the middle.
Come on,
did.
Scott, you idiot.
I did click your window. Oh, hang on. Sorry.
So that's Matt Porter. That's Sean Paisley. That's Dan Shook, and that's me.
That's awesome.
That's
all
the
you
Daniel Carter special right there. DC.
That's pretty great, man. Is that available on your Teespring or your Patreon?
It's gonna be.
Hell yeah.
He
I
does.
need that.
He
So
does.
this one says prime time on the back.
That's a good one. He does.
Why is it not Primetime 69? That rhymes.
Because that's not my number.
He does do some pretty amazing images.
Truth.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I will
just
buy
saying.
a Ham Hock T-shirt for sure.
I'm just saying. I mean, it's DC is totally team Ham Hock, that's for sure. So, oh man. Let's see what else we got. So I just want to see.
So what did you guys? I'm curious to ask. What did you guys bring? What did y'all bring? Is when you heard we were going to talk about value bourbons.
I didn't know what we were going to talk about.
Forgate, obviously.
Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean that's right. I go back and forth because like all of us, we have $15 bottles and we've got, let's just say $200 plus bottles. And again, like in terms of the value of that is, I mean, I appreciate like a really good, I appreciate a really good $15 bourbon. And I appreciate, I mean, I don't want to sound like a kid's ass or anything, but I'm a fan of Forgate. Like I enjoy it. I like the profile of it. I think a lot of people do. But at the end of the day, like I like this too. You know,
JTS Brown is awesome. Let's talk more about Forgate.
yeah. You should see the guy behind it. We don't want to talk about that guy, but
No, I agree with you. I think I brought Elijah Craig, just standard Elijah Craig. I brought Heaven Hill 6-year, the discontinued bottle and blonde, Knob Creek single barrel, my own Forgate. I mean, like value has a lot of different meanings to me.
yeah. Chris showed look at
That's
look at-
messed up, Chris.
Now Chris is
pretty
out
good. God.
That's me.
Man.
I like it all. I like it all. I just like whiskey. I like the
Fine. I definitely need to try that now. You put your lips on that.
I had the best value. It was a free.
so
from a
good.
friend, so.
Chris, do you have one of these?
That's the best value.
I need.
I
one
don't.
of those.
Hey, do you have one of these?
No, but I've had it. It's
SC1
not that
PB?
good. I've had it. It's not that good. Have you had this? This is phenomenal.
I haven't. I have. Actually, that's not true. Funny story. I have had Pingree 13-year. It was a store pick. It was in Austin last year at the Bastards Ball at the Crowded Barrel deal. And Daniel Shook had bottle chugged the last of it on their live stream from location. And I picked it up off the table, poured it into a Glencairn, and it was mostly spit. And it was still fucking delicious.
Oh, geez.
What if you don't like weeded bourbons?
Oh,
But if you took weeded bourbons out of the conversation, what's a great value bourbon for you?
Anything interesting, I ride.
I mean, are
Anything
there really, besides like Rebel 100, are there any like great weeded value bourbons? I mean, most people, unless you live in Ohio, you really can't find Weller for a good price.
I mean, to be honest, like
I will tell you that
I
I
don't
think
mind. I don't mind Old Elk that much, to be honest with you. Like I've had an Old Elk pick before that's been fantastic. I mean, some people don't like that, but
I think Maker's Cast Strength is a great value
Oh yeah, Maker's Cast.
bourbon.
yeah,
I think so. I prefer spicier bourbon. So like I prefer high rye.
yeah.
yeah.
But if I like a weeded, what I generally will go for is like a Old Weller Antique. And if that's not available, it'll be a Maker's Cast Strength. And I think that Maker's Cast Strength is the most underrated weeded bourbon on the market.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great weeded bourbon.
I agree. And I mean, you get it on sale here sometimes for like $24 for a
Yeah.
fifth.
And no one talks about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's
I
the
think a
People
lot
go
of
crazy about
Maker's
Green Label
products
Weller,
like
which in
this.
my opinion is goat piss. Sorry for saying that out loud. But like Maker's
Bill,
Cast Strength is awesome.
But Bill, it's so smooth.
It's smooth. It's smooth. I love smooth. That's my
Oh.
favorite
Smooth.
descriptor.
I mean, I guess when you think of that, a cast strength bourbon for that kind of price, I mean, it's really, really difficult to argue, that as a value bourbon for sure.
I think it's a great bourbon.
Yeah.
I think it's a great value. I think there's certain, and one thing that might come out of like tonight better than anything else is if we could like come up with like 5 or 6 whiskeys that are just like objectively across all palates that are here tonight. What's a great value bourbon?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Elijah Craig Barrel Proof gets my vote.
so here's
I'll agree with you. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof.
Yep.
Tell me another 12-year-old barrel strength bourbon for $70.
I think Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is the number
Bull
one
Run.
value in bourbon today. Hands down.
I'm with you there, Jason.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say you asked about a
Daniel's
12-year-old
single
bourbon.
barrel proof.
Say that again.
Jack Daniel's single barrel proof.
Great
Yeah,
whiskey.
pretty good one too.
Yep.
Yeah. And
You
this
know,
one's a little more difficult to find, but you did say where can you find another 12-year-old bourbon for 50, 70 bucks? Bull Run is putting out some MGP 12, 13, 14-year-old stuff, and I've never found one over 60 bucks.
I haven't had that. I'd like to try it.
Might be able to make that happen, Bill.
How about Wild Turkey 101?
I like
think
Wild
for-
Turkey 101. I think
Yeah.
it is a quintessential bourbon.
It's probably what I recommend more than anything else.
Yep.
Quintessential is Jason's word. You can't use that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
I trademarked it.
Yeah.
I'll rinse my mouth out with some water.
So here's
Now,
some
now you owe me $200.
Nice. So here are the things you get like once in a while. So from Tommy D says, you know, Maker's 46 cask strength is so much better than regular cask. Now this is where like you can like really get into. I mean, I know it's subjective, and he likes the Maker's 46 more than the regular, and it is what it is. But for me personally, this is where I always have a bit of an issue when again, maybe not from this circumstance, but when people have to feel that they're right and tell you and are telling you that no, this is better than what that is. And I have a little bit of an issue with that kind of stuff, but you know, it is what it is. I get it. People have opinions. I know that. So
And,
Well, I
and
mean,
it's
again,
there's a
everyone,
difference
you know,
between saying if you like Maker's cask strength, you should try Maker's 46 cask strength.
yeah.
Versus saying, oh man, Maker's cask strength is dog piss once you've drank Maker's 46 cask strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You should-
if you say it a different way, I personally prefer 46 cask strength over Maker's cask strength. But that doesn't take away the value of either one of those. I mean, the regular Maker's cask strength is a great value, and it's a great bourbon. And then, but my personal opinion, if I had a choice between the two, I'd take 46 cask over the regular. But
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Mike. My palate, our palates kind of line up a little bit too. So I tend to reach for the 46 as well. But I think I was literally having this conversation in the store with someone the other day who was looking at the Maker's cask strength, and I said, well, you know, he asked me, oh, what do you like? I'm like, well, I really like the 46, but I'm like, have you ever had it? And he's like, no, I really kind of have stayed within just regular Makers. I'm like, you know what, then you can try the Maker's cask strength before you jump to the 46. It's more in line with the profile. It's still a great value.
Yeah.
Can I throw a huge wrench into the whole conversation here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So in Kentucky, this is probably a different conversation because Kentucky very specifically taxes everything differently for a reason. What do you guys consider a better value, Scotch or bourbon right now?
Ooh.
No.
Because in Kentucky, I'm going to tell you right now, Scotch is a better value than bourbon.
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
So
worked
I
here.
think-
This
I
will
think
go
you're
over a lot of
asking-
people's heads.
When I hear what's a
Line
better
right away.
value, I got to bring in the factor of availability, because if you can't find it, it's not a value. And so if every bourbon was on the shelf at MSRP, I would say that bourbon's a better value than Scotch. But you can go find Unicorn Scotch pretty much anytime you go out to look for Unicorn Scotch.
Pretty easy.
That's a good point, HBR. It's a great point, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks. Don't sound so surprised.
Here's and I'm glad you guys brought that up, because today I was out and I saw something. It was like, I don't know much or anything about Scotch, but I saw like Macallan maybe 15 or something like that. And I was at Costco and it was just sitting there. And I think it was, I don't know, a couple $100. Does that sound right? Maybe $300.
Well, Macallan is kind of a different animal, because even Scotch lovers deem Macallan is overpriced for what it is, which is surprising. You know,
Okay, but here's
Macallan,
But here's my point: is that a Scotch that a lot of people would really like, to the point where like you would never see that, like the equivalent of that to a bourbon. You would never just see that sitting there like on a shelf at Costco.
Yeah,
You know
call
what I
it
mean?
Hancock's
There's a
Reserve.
Buffalo Trace of Scotch.
Yeah, call it Hancock's Reserve.
Yeah,
And
basically.
you would never see a pallet of it.
Maybe, but I mean, the MSRP of Macallan is way higher than Buffalo Trace by comparison in their respective markets. You know what I mean?
Maybe
Like
in Kentucky, maybe not so much.
maybe, but I mean, but like Mac 18 is like 300, 350 right now, and I don't know. I don't know if we can make that comparison. I'm not sure. If it was a
I
cheap one,
live in Buffalo Trace land. I live in Frankfort, Kentucky, and hey, kid. And so, like, I used to work at a liquor store here in Frankfurt, and our prices had their 35% markup. And I no longer work there. I just worked there part time. And then that store got bought by someone else, and now their markup is on some of the bourbons is ridiculous. I mean, I have better luck finding Buffalo Trace products at Buffalo Trace in their gift shop than I do here in Frankfurt. The markup is it's like 140 for Weller now, and I can go down to Buffalo Trace. I can only get it once every get some Weller once every 3 months, but it's it's a regular decent price. It's kind of gotten really bad here.
Yeah.
And your store's what, like a mile and a half from Buffalo Trace? Max? Yeah.
I like to
Right.
tell Tommy D that I stood up for you, buddy.
I've got to say, Tommy, I was just using that as an example. I wasn't trying to call you out or anything like that. So I was just saying that we all know the people that are out there that tell us things, that tell you, and same thing for you, Tommy. I mean, people, if someone tells you something, you got to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, you're the only one that knows if it's good or not.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at some of our comments that we get on some of our reviews,
yeah,
you can kind of see where this whole topic can. I mean, you can just you can basically see where this topic can run in so many different directions. So,
why do I put myself through this? I swear to God, I'll tell you, this guy.
You're a martyr, man. You're a martyr.
I am. It's just a guy who likes getting kicked in the balls every single time. I'll tell you.
I mean, when I did my top 5, bottles better than Blanton's, and Clinus is nothing, obviously, against you, but I had a lot of people that said
Call that guy out.
I had a lot of people that said, that the bottles that I reviewed were maybe as good as Blanton's, but not better than Blanton's. And again, this is where this whole topic kind of ties into, is it's all subjective, right?
Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, there's a shit ton of bottles out there better than Blanton's.
Yeah.
I just laugh because there's some really good Blanton's out there too.
Yeah.
It's a single barrel product, and the problem is people get so down on it that it's become a tater product, and now anybody that likes Blanton's is a tater. Well, that's not true. It's still a good product. If you can get it at $60, buy it. And there isn't any one of the 8 of us here that if they saw it on a shelf at $60 wouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, shit, I'll grab a bottle of that.
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah.
Can I also, like, one thing I want to add about, like, in terms of Forgate, we're very well aware of what Bob and I who run Forgate, we're both very well aware of what whiskey costs, what bottles cost. We know that when we come out at $200, we're competing against Bourbon X, Bourbon Y, Bourbon Z. We're very much trying to put out something that you will taste and say it's worth whatever it's going to cost you to buy it. So, like, we know we're competing against Blanton's. We're competing against Bardstown Bourbon Company. We know we're competing against the port finish. I don't know. Whatever barrel finish is coming out. We know we're competing against that. So, like, we want you to compare it, and we hope that you taste ours and taste theirs, and you think it's worth it. We understand that we're very expensive compared to other people, so we're trying to put out a premium product. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like Chris brought it up before. I mean, it's a lot of, and Jason too, it's a lot of what goes into it. It's not like you just acquire a barrel of, of bourbon and you stick it in a finished barrel and pump it out and it's $200. There's so many more things that go into why something is more expensive than just because somebody wants to put a high price tag on it. You know,
my best experience on that is our batch 6, which was the Heaven Collaboration 2 that I don't know, Minnick and people like thought was amazing and everything, and they named it their barrel finished whiskey of the year. When we first did that whiskey, we finished it in rum casks, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was worth charging people a premium. And then we got these other casks in, and one of which was cognac. And I said, well, let's do some in cognac, and then we'll blend it with this rum whiskey, and we'll see how it tastes. It tasted fantastic. So, you know, I think it's incumbent on people. If your whiskey, if you know coming out your whiskey is going to be more expensive than what's typically on the shelf, you got to give people a reason to buy it. I mean, if I'm competing against, you know, company AYZ or something who's sitting right next to me, I got to give you a reason to pay double for me what you're paying for them. And if you can't do that, don't buy the whiskey. If you don't think that that what we do at Foregate is not worth it, you're probably not our target market. Don't buy it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. You don't have to think we're the best value in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. I mean, again, that's to the point of, you know, being subjective. You know, if you know, see, that's the other issue is when someone says, you know, like, it's too expensive or it's overpriced. You know, are you saying that from the point of you've had it and you don't really enjoy it, or are you just saying that because it's a $200 bottle, no matter what it is? And that's where I sometimes have an issue with. Same thing with like Old Carter, Foregate, all of these brands where they're a premium priced, you know, whiskey, is that, you know, if you're going to tell me it's overpriced or not very good, you sure as hell better have had it if you're going to tell me that, you know, not just because it's $200 and I can go and buy a $50 MGP, that we're not comparing the same things. Now with that $50 MGP may be absolutely fantastic, but we're talking about two different things here, you know? So
yeah. I'm kind of along the same lines. I kind of feel like it, if you say that like you're not worth $200, then I don't really know whether you taste it or not, but maybe no bourbon is worth $200 for you. So I'm okay with that. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not everyone can spend $200. We don't make that much. I mean, it's not like we're putting out 20,000 bottles and we need you guys to buy it. I mean, about 2,000 bottles, 1,500 bottles. You know,
I mean, I get that a lot. You know, whenever I do, you know, value or underrated or, you know, whatever, overlooked bourbon videos, you know, there's always a couple people in the comments that always write, no bourbon is worth over $50.
Yeah.
So, hey, if that's your wheelhouse, you know, go with it.
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, it leaves some more of the expensive stuff for me, but thanks.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, I think that the more crucial part of this question is not what you find valuable. It's not shitting on what someone else finds valuable.
Nailed it.
Because
exactly,
you can steal someone's joy so easily.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends that, you know, were seeing what I was drinking as a young bourbon enthusiast and be like, oh, well, that's from this distillery. You don't like that. Well, no, I really did. I really enjoyed it. And I liked it. But because of the stigma and the negativity surrounding some brands, you know, it's like, oh, well, maybe, you know what? Maybe I'm not noticing how bad this is.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's terrible. That's awful. Why would you steal someone's joy from that? So allow other people to have value in their brands and their enjoyment, and don't shit on that. That's crucial.
And I think it's hard.
I get it. I don't want to like shit on somebody who can't afford a $200 bottle of whiskey. I'm fine with that. I understand it. I promise you, I've been there. You know, I'm 45. There's been many times in my life when a $200 anything was a massive investment for me. I get it. I'm fine with that. But if $200 is not stretching your budget or breaking your, you know, paying for your kids' tuition or something like that, then, you know, consider us.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with any luxury product, right? Do you buy a Mercedes, or do you buy a BMW, or do you buy a Chevy, or do you buy a Kia, right? Like there's a huge spectrum in what you get for what you spend. So, you know, that's up to you. I can't tell you whether you need a Kia or you need a Mercedes. I can't tell you that.
So
Glenn, you can derive great value from your
I think
deal,
Swami
right?
Swami nailed it in the comments. He says, "How about don't be a snowflake and enjoy what you like."
There you
That's
go.
fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Swami, I'm sorry about my
$40 is all you can is all you want to pay on a bottle of bourbon. There's a million great bottles of $40 bourbon. Buy them, love them. I'm there with you, and I'll drink them with you. Come to my house, we'll drink them together.
Yep. Well, if we're coming to your house, we're not drinking that. We all know what we're drinking if we come to your house.
Yeah, we're all drinking.
Evan Williams.
Yeah, I mean, and as as reviewers and as writers or whatever it may be, bloggers, I think, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, people that watch our certain channels or read certain articles, they kind of get tuned into someone's particular palette, or just they like their style of videos, whatever it may be. We get reached out to a lot. Hey, found this bourbon on the shelf. Somebody told me about, somebody asked me about a Stag Junior Batch 15 they found and alluded that it was, $150 on the shelf. For me, I was like, listen, if it was me, I would pay it because I love that particular batch. And it seems each batch isn't consistent. So when you find a special one, grab it when you can. But other people would be like, you're fucking crazy for paying $150 for any Stag because it's 8 years old and, it's just high proof. I'm like, well, that's what you may feel, but I feel like it's worth it. Yeah. And, that happens a lot throughout the whole week. You just get somebody asked me about the Blue Run today. Oh, that bottle's 170. What do you think? Is it worth it? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's a decent bourbon. I don't think it's worth $170 personally. That's just my opinion. I always say to people, like, listen, if you can go to a bar and try something for $15, $20 pour before pulling the trigger on something, do it. Or if you fully trust my palate, then listen to what I'm telling you. But that's the choice you're going to have to make and what you have to perceive value as.
And your answer is totally fair. I mean, like, I get asked that question a ton, and my answer is always I would or I wouldn't. If that was in front of me right now, I would buy that.
Yeah.
If that was in front of me, I would not buy that. And that's the only thing I can tell you. Like, I don't know your finances. I don't want to know. I'm just telling you, me personally, I would buy it for that price, or I wouldn't buy it for that price, and take that for what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I think that's a way, particularly with whiskey on YouTube, it's such a thing now, right? Like, that's where people go to determine whether they should buy a bottle or not. Find someone whose palate you agree with. Go with them. Like, listen to them. Literally, like find Dusty Dan. If everything he says you like, you've liked, then when he says he loves something, buy it. If he says he doesn't love something, don't buy it. And it's up to people like me and other people who source or blend or bottle whiskey to make something that you like. If we can't do it, then don't buy it.
Yeah. Like Alec in the chat, he wrote, is Kentucky Owl Dry state of value? Now, I think there are certain brands that no matter which way you look at it are overpriced. Yeah. I mean, but you also have to look at what they're trying to position themselves out in the market. You have brands like Kentucky Owl. I'll even bring up, Whistle Pig for the most part. A lot of those brands, a lot of those bottles that they have, I think are way overpriced. Yep. We were talking about the Willet Purple Tops earlier. Those things retail for $600, $700, $800, but these are being marketed as very premium, high grade whiskeys that I don't think are near what the asking price is. But people still value it because they feel like if I have this on my shelf, then it's important to me.
Yeah. Thanks,
So
Cam.
how on earth is a 12-year-old MGP worth less than a 4-year-old Willet or a 6-year-old Willet?
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. And that's
what the hell?
I have a 6-year-old Purple Top there that I paid $250 to $300 for, and it's probably one of the worst purchases I ever made. It looks great on myself. I'm glad I have a nice purple top on it.
Oh, they're pretty.
I would drink this all day over it, and it was cheaper. I mean,
hey, Klein, DM me again.
Yeah.
I just The onus is on the producer, the bottler, whoever you want to call it, someone like us. We got to produce something that you want to buy.
Yeah.
And at the price that we can sell it, if we can't do that, then that's our fault.
Yeah.
It's our fault. I mean, literally, if I can't make a 48 whiskey label that you want to buy it, whatever our price range is, that's my fault. Otherwise, I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, that's the thing too, is you're doing it in an honest way. And I feel like a lot of the place, and I was talking about secondary earlier today, a lot of the place where people start to really lose values that they're feeling gouged. And I spoke earlier, my definition of value is, first of all, do I feel like I paid a fair price for what I got?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if yourself, Fortnite, the Carters, Bull Run, like these people that are Smoke Wagon, I know that you are paying a premium for your whiskey, but it's good whiskey, and I'm willing to pay a premium to drink the whiskey that you took the time to separate, choose, and bottle. And I mean, your stuff, I've never seen it in person, but I can tell you that it's at the high range of my acceptable outlay of cash. But if I saw one, I'd buy it in a heartbeat because I know what it is. I know it's a thing that I value. I know it's a thing I've had previous experience with in other iterations. And so that's crucial, right? Like, I mean, set yourself some parameters for your values. Do I like a whiskey from this distiller? Do I like a whiskey within this age range? Do I like a whiskey within this price? Where's my point of pain? Where does it stop being fun to buy this bottle?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to go through, like all of us, we all go through the stages of buying whiskey. When you're first starting out, you just want to try everything. So you buy everything, you don't care what it is. Then you hear Buffalo Trace is the one to get. Oh my God, I gotta have blends, I gotta have Elmer T. Lee, I gotta have Rock Hill Farms, I gotta have Hancock, I gotta have it all. I need Eagle Rare, I gotta hunt down BTAC, I gotta get all that shit. And you'll pay a premium for that because you're new in the game and you want to buy those without really knowing what else is on the shelf that is actually a better value than all that other shit. So then you kind of get a little bit more educated, and then you start kind of figuring out what the age of things are. The proof is, you like barrel proof, you not like barrel proof, are you a weeder guy, you a 4-grain guy, whatever it may be. And now we're at this point where you get a little bit more selective. You know what you like, what's a good value or not. But then there's the whole, I think for us, for me personally, I think the FOMO thing plays more into it than anything with me.
Oh yeah,
because I'm way more selective now on what I buy. Obviously, I'm buying bottles for the channel to do reviews, but when I just want bottles for myself, I'm way more selective now. I don't just buy everything I see anymore.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of that FOMO that comes into play.
Well, I completely agree with you, Jason, on that. Just to say, I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and that's a very good point because we all know when you do the review, that part is done for the most part. Now, is that something I'm really going to enjoy sitting down and drinking versus the one that just gets stuffed in the back of the shelf because I had to do a review of it,
Yeah. Well, and then there's the time that you get spoiled. So with Chris was like rattling off all that MGP, that wonderful MGP that we can find out there. I was in Alabama and they had an Old Soul. So Cat's Eye Distillery, Old Soul. It was a AB store pick that was 12-year MGP, $60.
Yeah.
So I bought one. Kevin bought one. I bought one for Alec. I'm like, all right, so I got 3 bottles. Let's got back to the hotel room, and I was like, why the hell didn't I buy 10 of these? Why was I not thinking that this was 12-year MGP for $60? Like that?
Yeah,
it's so stupid. I should.
And that's a great point because you think about that statement is. It's not only is it 12-year, it's older MGP, and we understand what the value of that really is. And that for $60, I would say that's a great value if you like that profile. Yeah. It's a great value, period.
And especially for guys like us that are educated, and we see non-distilling producers putting out MGP that get on the secondary and in other stores, and they're selling for $400, $450, $500.
Yeah.
When it's, 10, 11, 12 years old, single barrel MGP, when I can just go buy a Remus Repeal batch for $80.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
And Matt Blom's got a great point.
And here's another. So here you go from Blom Brothers. Matt, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it. So here's another one. You know, I mean, to his point right there, it's exactly. And you get when the FOMO kicks in and someone gets it and the hype builds up. Now all of a sudden it flies off the shelf. I mean, look at what these things go for now: $500-600 for a bottle of that, an older MGP, and it's great stuff at MSRP when everybody could buy that stuff. But now to go out and spend $400-600, it's crazy pricing, you know. So
Can I just say that like MGP kind of drives the secondary market, like. Everything we talk about with the secondary market and what is bourbon worth is driven by MGP. It really is. Like you don't think about it. You think about like what is Pappy trading for? What is something trading for? The reality is that like a 12-year-old MGP bourbon or MGP rye is what drives the secondary market.
Yep.
Or an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 6-year-old, because that's the secondary market. Because that is you won't find anything else that's more common than MGP distillate, right?
Yep.
So it could be Smoke Wagon, it could be an Old Scout, it could be something like that. That drives the secondary market. It really does.
Yeah.
And people will say like, it's not. When we go back to value, you talk about value with MGP. Go find me a 5-year-old MGP at cask strength that's not $150.
Yeah.
Go find me a 6-year-old one. Go find me a 7-year-old one. Go find me an 8-year-old one. Go find me a 4-year-old one. I don't care what it is.
yeah.
Go tell me what it is. So where's the value there for MGP rye for 95.5? It's the most common rye mash bill out there. What's the best value for price of the 95.5?
When you got guys that are doing it like Sagamore will sell you one for $65, but then you got Nashville Barrel Company that does $175.
Yeah.
And it's literally the same distillate.
Same thing. Yeah. Yep.
Same distillate, same age, same proof, whatever. I mean,
He's the luckiest man. He is the luckiest man, that's for sure.
am I echoing?
A little bit.
Wait, it sounded a little bit like you're announcing a men's softball league in the 80s.
I am the luckiest man.
We weren't gonna say we're gonna let you know.
It's the way that all of us tried to mute our own mics to make sure it was.
We're an hour into this.
No.
Why wouldn't you tell me this?
Nope,
It just started.
Chris, I'm wondering because I got loud kids, man.
Mike just killed me with that. Oh my god.
Yeah, it looks like somebody won't be getting Forgate this year.
Every one of you guys, you're off the sample list.
I never was on it.
Perfect. You're off it permanently.
I didn't know about it.
Permanently.
Love it.
Oh, Jesus, that's good. It doesn't take long for here they come. Everything will be following here pretty soon. I feel like the luckiest man.
I feel.
All right, what's Matt have to say? You know, and that's the thing. I mean, all of these guys, you know, Bill, Matt. I mean, these guys are in the business. I mean, Blom Brothers, another big one out of Illinois, and again, it is. I mean, I know they sourced a lot of stuff from, Nodder Bourbon. I mean, they played right off of that. I mean, they didn't even make any bones about it. So, which was fantastic stuff. People still go crazy about it. It's a great bourbon. It is what it is.
Which, by the way, in case you guys don't know what Scott's talking about, like I didn't until literally like 4 nights ago. I was on a Zoom call with Matt and his brother, and I didn't know that Nodder Bourbon literally meant not our bourbon. And I felt like a total dolt. So, hey, thanks for not being a jerk about it, Matt. You go.
Do I
Really
not sound like Gary anymore? Can anyone confirm that?
You sound good.
No, you're good, Bill. You're good.
Yeah. There's something wrong with the video, though.
The video?
No, I'm just kidding.
Scott, you're definitely off the list, buddy.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, I remember when these were going for, pretty good amount on the secondary once they got popular.
Yeah.
These 12-year Old Faneuil Nodder bourbons, and now when you see them, they're I think about over $400 the last one I saw.
Yep.
So, I mean, it just goes to show you not only the trajectory of what people are perceiving any MGP, especially anything over 8 years in value, but just how crazy the market has become. And again, just to Bill's point, NGP and all this stuff that you see, it's definitely driving these price increases. I mean, I put Buffalo Trace in another dimension because they're just fucking
I do too.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that was the only caveat I had to Bill's statement was that Buffalo Trace really it drives, and it's even more tatery than MGP because MGP has substance, right? I mean, you have age stated mash bill. I mean, it's all very transparent what it is when it's MGP, and with Buffalo Trace, it's like 4 to 8-year-old mystery juice that's selling for $350.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Well, for
at
all
least with
those
MGP, you
lines-
know what you're getting.
If we're all
One more wrench into it.
Yeah.
Like, if MGP is, how do I put this? Talk amongst yourselves.
Were you about to say something shitty about
Yeah.
Put a wrench in his own statement.
Be careful. Be careful.
I'm gonna wait before I say what I'm gonna say.
All right, here's all right.
Think about
Here,
what I
we'll,
wanna
here,
put this.
we'll go on to another little quick subject here. MGP light
I was
whiskey
going to
is
say it's
amazing.
going to be interesting
Oh,
10,
it's so
15 years from now because Buffalo Trace has, probably they've built like 5 or 6 new warehouses here. It's amazing the change they've, the landscape of Frankfurt now.
So is light whiskey maybe something that's going to take off a little more in
God, I hope so.
2021?
I
Yep.
think so. I think you know
I
why? Because it's just people's bourbon profiles are just getting freaking sweeter and sweeter as the more people get into it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what light whiskey is. Light whiskey is like drinking pure candy corn.
It's
That's so good.
The one thing I think that will keep it from exploding is the fact that it says light, and too many people associate light with light beer or whatever it may be.
Light
And they-
flavor.
Light flavor.
It's actually, people don't know this, but light whiskey is short for light your ass up.
Yeah.
So I
I
have
get-
here a Dave Mattingly pick.
Yep.
What do you guys think in terms of value? The MGP, we're going to call it a merger, but it's really a purchase of Lux Row. What do you think that's going to do to the value of whiskey on the secondary market or on the primary market? I don't really care which one it is because it's going to affect both.
I think it's going to affect. Personally, I think it's going to affect what we see of those Luxco brands. I think it's going to have a definite effect.
Yeah.
Because now Luxco is now distilled in Indiana.
But I'll tell you right now, if Old Ezra 7 becomes a barrel strength 7-year-old MGP product, I will not be able to buy enough of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's probably going to be blended between Bardstown and Indiana. Again, I'm just saying, what's going to happen to the value of secondary whiskey? When we talk about value, everything we're talking about today, if MGP drives the value of bourbon, and I think it does, it drives the value of whiskey in a very large way. What happens when it's no longer there? Because they're going to be able to take anything they make, any excess that they distill, and send it to Lux Row.
Well,
So
that can be
anything
said right now about Eight and Sand and
today
Remus.
is going to become Rebel tomorrow or Ezra tomorrow. What happens to the value of whiskey, American whiskey?
So what are your thoughts on Remus and Eight and Sand and Rossville right now?
I love all of those. They're going to become much more expensive. Well, the ones that were already MGP brands, I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect on. My question is everyone else who's sourcing from MGP, good luck.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's
Oh,
going to
yeah.
increase scarcity among MGP honey barrels for NDPs for sure.
Oh yeah. I think-
Non-distilled producers, guys.
Yeah,
So-
I
So,
said this
yeah,
last week when we were talking about. I think NDPs that just strictly rely on 4, 5, 6-year-old MGP stuff to throw in their bottles and put in their own. I think that well is going to start running a little bit dry. Maybe not dry, but I think, MGP might be halting the brakes on that a little bit, going to that well so much.
Matt made a great point right here. Exactly. MGP has tried its hand at introducing their own brands. And I think this is their attempt to, like Jason and I, we were talking about the other day, this is where you can start to use some of the marketing of another brand outside of MGP. Because, I mean, frankly, MGP struggled, I think, with the whole branding of things. We just know MGP as somebody else's whiskey under another label. Like, we don't ever go after MGP's own things because, it's either not the greatest that we interpret as not the greatest, but everybody loves what they do that goes into somebody else's bottle.
Yeah, you can't just see it. You can't just see it as MGP acquiring Luxco or merging Lux, whatever you want to call it. You have to look at it as MGP acquiring more market share, more brands that already have a following to, a sales force, a marketing team. They're acquiring all of that to get more of their product on the shelf. Now, whether or not MGP thinks, the board members or do they now, my questions to Bill here, with more brands on the shelf now that say we get to a certain point, MGP, I mean, we're putting in Ezra, we're putting in Rebel, Blood Oath, everything is going to be some sort of level of MGP in those brands now. Does this drive the prices up of everything else that MGP offers?
I think it drives up the price of everything, not just MGP stuff, because when I say that I think MGP is like the baseline of source whiskey, I don't mean that it's the baseline of MGP source whiskey. I think that it's the baseline of sourced whiskey because people know that MGP is good whiskey. Doesn't matter if it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So if it's MGP, it's 3 years old, it's based on X amount of dollars per barrel.
Yeah.
All right.
If it's Kentucky, if it's a heritage distillery, it's X plus, I don't know, 25%, 30%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If it's not a heritage distiller, if it's one of the newer ones, it's a little bit less than that, whatever. My opinion is that this will drive up the cost of anything that's sourced significantly over the next few years, mainly because it's going to tighten the supply. So the very baseline that you're talking about, when we go out and we talk to people about what whiskey we're looking at, and they say, "Hey, we have this from this distiller," we're like, "Well, hey, we've had this offered to us, X price. It's Indiana. You're Kentucky, so we'll pay a little bit. We'll pay a premium."
Yeah.
Those guys are going to say now, "Hey, you can't get that anymore. So instead of 10% premium, it's going to be 50% premium." Okay. From our standpoint, I think that this purchase and them having more market share is going to drive up the price of whiskey in general, particularly anything that's sourced, significantly. Like, you're going to see over the next 18 months a significant increase in price.
So Bill, real quick, just a quick question. Do you think there's going to be any more purchases like this, not necessarily from MGP, but from other people, from other distillers this year? Do you think it's going to happen more this year than last or the few years past?
I don't know year over year or anything like that, but I would be shocked if there weren't another 1 or 2 or 3 purchases this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the way to look at it is if you have this like distillate and you think it's a good distillate and you can't gain a whole lot of traction, what do? You buy a brand. The brand doesn't have to have a distillery behind it. It doesn't have anything but just a name, right? So go out and buy I'm just completely making this up, but go out and buy Kentucky. I'll go out and buy a Old Carter, whatever the case may be.
Thanks,
it has
buddy.
a name that people already recognize. Doesn't matter what you put in it, but they know that Old Carter is awesome. So let's buy an Old Carter, or let's buy a Lux Row, or whatever the case may be. It's going to happen more and more over the case of the next 5 years, and people are going to. So the thing is that like what you see today is not what's going to happen 3 years from now, because 3 years from now there'll be 20 other labels that you've never heard of. Now there'll be a Blue Nun and a 3-Chord or whatever the case may be. Someone's going to buy those labels at some point in the next few years.
Thanks,
Hey,
Kleiner.
boys,
I appreciate
it
it.
was great hanging with you guys. I got
buddy.
a jet. I got an early flight tomorrow. Love you guys. Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
bud.
Don't forget
You
to
too,
see
buddy.
Cheers, buddy.
Safe
See you
flight.
guys.
Yeah, I think it'll be similar to like craft beer. I mean, the big boys are losing that market, so they start going out and buying. I'm surprised Anheuser-Busch hasn't like bought a brewery in every state. I mean, it's probably pretty close if you look at it. So I think you're going to see these big purchases, and they're just going to start gobbling up some of these small guys. I mean, who wouldn't want to take a slice and say, "Hey, I'll buy a Wilderness Trail or something like that"?
Yeah.
I mean.
I think one of the things that protects Wilderness Trail is the fact that they are such a massive producer of yeast strains for the brewing community that they might be more insulated from M&A, merger and acquisition activity. But no, I mean, and we've watched it happen, right? I mean, you talk about Kentucky Owl. They were acquired by Stoli. You look at all the brands Pernod has picked up. I mean, and what's crucial to me is not the acquisitions. It's the resurgence. It's the reinvigoration of new, younger brands. Because, there's going to be big brands that buy your favorite brand. Yeah. Where are you going to go next? Because it's going to change.
Yep.
Well,
and I wanted to come back to Bill. I had a question for you. You speak as a guy that sounds not necessarily jaded, but definitely apprehensive about the Luxco MGP merger. And I mean, that's your bread and butter, right? I mean, so as a guy who's dealing with MGP as your supplier, as your contractor, are you concerned as a producer that your prices are going to increase to an unsustainable rate?
That was going to be my question to Bill as well. Yep.
It's a good question.
We
Really bought from MGP, so no. The only stuff we've ever done from MGP is rye. We bought some rye that was MGP distilled, but it wasn't. We didn't buy it from MGP, so.
Gotcha.
No, I mean, it is what it is. Like the whole industry is what it is. I think best way to say it. And when we started out, our very first release was 11 and a half years old, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. That's not cheap. When you buy barrels of that, I don't care how many other people have bought barrels of that. You spend a lot of money. Our first, I think it was 17 barrels of it. 2 of them were completely empty. They're dry. Their staves had cracked or something, completely empty. So, if MGP gets more expensive, MGP stuff, and it drives up the general market, we're okay with that. We're okay. As long as we can find stuff, we're okay. Like, it doesn't matter where it comes from. We're not going to buy stuff that isn't good. We're not going to buy whiskey that tastes bad. We're only going to buy stuff that we taste and we like. And so far, we've been lucky. It's all been Kentucky. It's all been Indiana. One of the two. Or Tennessee. We bought some stuff from Tennessee as well. But so am I worried about it? No. But am I watching it? Yeah, we're watching it. We know that it can potentially impact our business model. And so
Joseph, it's no longer Heaven Hill. I don't think they have a relationship as much as they used to. Right, Bill?
Who's that?
I don't think like Luxro has the relationship with Heaven Hill like they used to anymore.
I guess they don't. My guess is they don't. I know at one point, like everything they did was Heaven Hill.
Yeah. They're the contracts ran out. The contracts ran out, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I will say the 10-year Rebel single barrels were some of my favorite Luxro products.
Oh, they're so damn good.
For $68, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a weeded Heaven Hill mash bill, but
and here's to Chris's point, like here's another, like, in terms of like value and pricing, is that with all of us understanding where things come from and what the liquid may be in one bottle versus another, and understanding what those two are, like the same thing, relatively same thing, maybe $100 in this label versus $50 in this label. So we know we're getting a better bang for our buck, considering we know that it's relatively the same thing. So
it's perfect. I mean, tell me, everyone here who's still online, tell me of the Rebel Yell 10-year single barrel versus Larceny. The exact same whiskey, exact same distillate.
Yeah, but it's also the same distillate as the Old Fitz 9 and 11.
It's the exact same as the Old Fitz 4-year that was $9.
Yeah, so the difference to me is going to lie within the age of a mash bill that I know and trust and enjoy.
Exactly. And I mean, let's be honest, when it comes to the Old Fitzes, I mean, yeah, the 9-year ones are not impressive at all.
No.
I would take a
It's all
Rebel.
about the decanter.
It's all about the decanter.
I take a Rebel over all of those, to be honest.
I take a Rebel out of mostly all, and I don't know what it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is
I'm
about.
with you.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the Rebel 10s, but it just there's something about it.
I'll tell you what it is to me. It's the fact that it costs $68 and it's almost always on the shelf.
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky. I can't get it here, unfortunately. It's a ghost right now.
Well, it's
if I can find a 10-year,
what's happened.
if I can find it, I'll buy it tomorrow.
Yeah,
10
that's one of those bottles. If I see it, it's an automatic buy.
Yeah.
I think I have 2 or 3 bottles in the other room. I think it's fantastic stuff, and I'm a big Heaven Hill fanboy. For one, let me just put that on the table. That I love Heaven Hill. Their flavor profile is me. I love the peanut that you get in their regular stuff. I love the circus peanuts / sugar you get in their wheated mash bill. That's me. I love it.
We've got all kinds of brands in here.
Like, how weird is it that Lux Row can put out a better version of their wheated bourbon than Heaven Hill?
So that's a great question, and that leads me back to the Remus. Yeah, that leads me back to the Remus versus the sourced MGP stuff. Are they getting rid of their honey barrels to their third-party guys because they're going to get more from it than they would from themselves? Because those barrel brokers can go pimp those honey barrels.
Yeah.
As I understand, they're saving their honey barrels and they're selling everything else to everyone else. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know that I love Remus Reveal Reserve,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, I do too.
Well, okay, here's a good point. So Christopher David before said something about MGP and their marketing. Like the Remus Repeal is like such a great bourbon, but they lack so badly in the marketing part of it. Like if it wasn't for a lot of us talking amongst each other, nobody would even know what the hell that is.
Yeah,
Remus.
that's why. Yeah, that's I think that's a big part of the Lux Row acquisition because Luxco has built the brand. They've built a following. They know, people know the brands that come out of Lux Row distillers, and they have the marketing team to back it up. And I think that's something that MGP sorely needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I always thought I would love to just have an experiment at some point, and I don't know if anyone could ever do this, but take off the Remus label and just throw MGP 12-year bourbon on the front of the Remus Repeal Reserve and see what it does to consumers, the educated consumers, because most newbies don't know what the hell an MGP is.
Yeah.
It would go full OKI.
Yeah, exactly. Full OKI.
One of them to get their Remus.
Full old school mic drop.
Hey, Bourbon Battalion actually just posted in the comment, and I commented on. He said, where is it? He said, how often is everyone doing double blinds to double check their brain? I think doing
As often
blinds
as I
is
can.
something that will honestly put you in check with what you truly think you like, and then what you may have thought you didn't like. That may come to just that truly doing blind tastings is really, especially amongst yourself, if you have someone to actually mix it up for you, that is one of the best ways to truly find what you like over something else. Just plain and simple.
Yeah.
It's the most humbling thing in bourbon reviewing is blind tasting.
Yeah. Yep.
It's humbling. It really is. You think you taste stuff and you think that when you know what it is, it doesn't matter how much you try to disassociate yourself with the label.
Yeah.
When you taste it blind and you don't know what the label is, it's humbling because you're like, oh my God.
Yep.
This 7-year Jim Beam is better than this $200 limited edition.
But here's the thing too, is, after you do your first blind over something, don't give up on that product just because it doesn't place where you thought it would. Go back and mix it up again and maybe taste, or have someone mix it up again
Yeah.
maybe the next day or whenever, and taste it again in a different order to see where that place is, because something else, that bourbon or 2 or 3 or 4, however many, could completely, mess with your taste.
Oh yeah,
Here's a good example. So I saw Robert was in here before. I know Bill knows Robert, but so his brand is Down Home, and for me, like the toasted barrel one that they did, like when I first tried it, I was like, man, I'm struggling with this. Like I didn't know what to do with it. I thought it was going to be really good, and I gave it some airtime and like a month, and went back to it. And it was literally like night and day. And it's kind of been my experience with the toasted barrel stuff, is that for some reason for me, like there's something about it, like fresh right off the neck, that I never get like the greatest profile from it. But once it gets a little bit of airtime, the toasted barrel stuff for me just really opens up and gets to where I want it to be. I don't know if that's anybody else's experience, but
Scott, I 100% agree. I almost find that the toasted barrel stuff off the neck is almost farmy. You get a lot of that cooked macaroni, cooked uncheesed macaroni off the neck.
Yeah.
And then once it opens up, it gets real nice toasted marshmallow campfire flavors.
Yeah.
But that first couple pours is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
Very sweet afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about testing it. I remember I ruined a buddy's like entire week because he.
Yeah, I remember that. It came down. Thanks for that, douche.
Yeah, he came over with his coveted bottle of Old Rip Van Winkle 10, and he paid $500 for it.
Oh.
And he was so proud of it. He's like, dude, this is the most delicious thing I've ever tasted in my life. I'm like, really? It is? I'm like, come here.
Come here. Let me show you, huh?
So I did a four pour blind for him, put in the glass, 4 pour blind, and just so lined it up for him. He went through. It was second to last. And the first one he picked, the first bourbon he picked before $40 was Wild Turkey Rare Breed.
Yeah.
Then
He went full milk on it.
The second one he picked was Henry McKenna 10-year. Yeah, and so he looked at me like I just ruined his entire life. But I'm like, this is why you have to look at bottles. You can't. There's one thing for FOMO, and I get it. And there's one thing that if you can afford it and get it, but don't just buy something because everyone else is telling you how good it is or it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, there's another one. You kind of nailed it, McKenna, before. People complain about it like where it's $50 or $60. I'm like, what are you complaining about exactly? You're talking about 100 proof, 10-year-old, a really good profile on a bourbon. What are you fucking complaining about?
Consumers, we were robbing Heaven Hill when it was $30. Let's be honest. Straight up robbery. There was no way that bourbon should have been $30 and 10 years, a bottle of bought and that cheap. If the bourbon market didn't do what it's done, then okay, maybe think about if we could get by with this price, okay. But the way the bourbon market has gone now, a 10-year bourbon that's bottled and bond, 100 proof, that shit should cost like $120 in today's market. But it's still $60.
Tell me how this was $9 in Louisville.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And I'm not saying it's the greatest whiskey in the world. I'm not saying everyone has to love it.
I don't even know.
Bottle and bond. How is a 4-year-old is $50?
We got Garrett. We got Garrett back again. We got Garrett. Yeah, but
how is anything less than I don't know.
Yeah. So Bill, I'll say there were so many people that were pissed off when it went from the 6-year to the 7-year, and it went from $12 to $55. Okay, I am one of those people. Okay, do you know how many blinds the 7-year Heaven Hill Bottled and Bond has won for me in bottled and bond flights?
So I agree with you. I agree with you. The 7 years better. My issue is not that it went from 6 to 7 years. That it went to 6 to 7 year and went up in price, and they didn't fucking sell it in Kentucky.
Fair
They
enough.
didn't sell it here.
Yep.
The only reason Heaven Hill still exists is because of Kentucky.
Yep.
I don't even know. I honestly,
Sorry.
I really don't know how they even really sold that bourbon at 6 years old for whatever, 12 or 15 bucks. I really don't even know how they ever even did that.
It had to be a loss leader, right? It just was like a basically Kentucky welfare.
Yeah.
It was. I have no words. So the state of Kentucky, we have always bought it. It's always been kind of one of our things.
Well,
And I get it. It was completely not okay for Heaven Hill to sell a 6-year bottle and bond whiskey for $9 to $11. I get it. I really do. But when you take it off the market, you put it back on the market at 7 years, and Kentucky isn't the market you started at when it was our bourbon for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Don't do that to us.
Yeah, I think
Bill Ben Tablib has a good question from the chat. How do you feel about the sex year? The sex year? That's perfect. How do you feel about the 6-year green label going on?
the sexier green label. I have a feeling Chris really likes them green M&Ms.
And I also love 6-year green label. I love it.
I buy the sexier green label.
Yeah.
Very often. I like it a lot. I think it's a great whiskey, and it's probably going to be discontinued very soon because
It is. It started discontinued.
you put that age statement on a whiskey, it's not worth it to Heaven Hill to sell it for $8 or whatever it is. I buy it by the 1.75s, and I used to make it that's mule.
Yeah.
I do that all the time mules with dyed ginger.
So Joseph brings up a good point. So is the reason that they didn't sell the new 7-year Heaven Hill bottled and bond in Kentucky is because people would shit all over it and get all
Everyone in Kentucky would have bought the shit out of it because we buy everything bourbon related.
Well, and they didn't want to give a middle finger to 49 states. They wanted to give a middle finger to 50 states.
Yep.
Even the Elijah Craig rye, the straight rye when they released that, and which was that was kind of it was an okay rye. It was kind of one of those take it or leave it mixer rye.
I didn't care for it. It was so young.
But they released that Georgia, I think Washington State, some really weird states that never really made it out anywhere. Which I'm like, what is with the Heaven Hill market? What are they doing? I didn't really understand.
That's something, Jason, there that I've always wondered. Actually, that you brought up that topic. Is some of these companies' marketing is where they distribute to. I don't understand at all.
Well, apparently, I from what
Everyone
I read,
drink when that pops up. Everyone drink.
yeah. From what I heard,
drink, everyone. Every time it pops up, everybody in the chat have a drink.
yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
You're going to give us all the epilepsy.
From what I read, the Elijah Craig rye they were strictly targeting high-end bar and cocktail regions.
Places where people have never tasted good rye.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Places where people only like menthol in their rye. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you like Pikesville, but if you want to have Pikesville like someone else is drinking it from 3 seats over, you'll love Elijah Craig rye.
Yeah.
Pikesville's good rye. Elijah Craig rye is Elijah Craig rye.
It's the LaCroix of rye whiskey.
LaCroix.
LaCroix. Oh my God!
I'm sorry.
Not even. Couldn't even upgrade it. Couldn't even upgrade it to Truly or some shit. It's LaCroix.
Yeah. I don't want to say it's
I'm
terrible.
talking about rye real close to your face.
It's like it came out within 3 months of Old Forester coming out with their $30 to $25 rye whiskey, and I'm just like, Old Forester's so much better. It's just
and it released pretty much everywhere pretty quickly.
yes, and like why Elijah Craig? Why Heaven Hill?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, Heaven Hill distribution is a freaking mystery to me.
Distribution to be like being on this side of distribution, I understand that it's a headache, and I wish I had more words for it.
Oh, actually,
Well, and Bill, I'm not knocking you, right? I get what a boutique distiller like yourself is has to deal with. They're fucking Heaven Hill. Like, do better.
Yeah.
I've been to Heaven Hill. I have seen the massive size of their distillery here in Louisville. It's just it's crazy large.
Yeah.
Just put your shit out sell it to the people who want it. That's all I'm saying. That's what we do. I mean, we started with the people who really wanted our stuff, and we expand when we can to more people who want our shit.
Yeah.
Bill, I have a question. Have you
Maybe they have the dartboard and the like, let's throw the dartboard, see where this goes. Boom.
Exactly.
Bill, have you had this yet?
Virgin?
Yeah.
Is that the 6 year?
Is that the 101?
This is
7 year?
101. This is the non-age stated one.
No, I've had the 6 year bottle in Bond, I think it was, or 100 proof, whatever it was.
This is the 7-year-old one.
I'm telling you, this is a great alternative to the white label being gone.
That's Heaven Hill. That's 6-7 years. Yeah.
Look at the bottle. Look at the bottle.
Send it out here, but by the time it got to our part of Texas, it was just called bourbon.
Scott likes it.
The bottle's literally the same. The bottle's literally the same.
Yes.
Hey, Bill. Joseph Brazier said he wants your shirt, and he's never seen it.
I think he means the shirt you have on right now.
I'm very confused because I have on a blue dress shirt and a vest.
He wants you to take your top off.
Here we go.
There you go. That's it, baby. Take it off.
Yeah.
That's why
I stayed on so long.
That's why we call him Brazzers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have shirts. Go to ForgateWhiskey.com and look for shop or something like that. I don't know.
Hey, well, one of Scott's models put that in the chat.
Here, Ed. We'll give you some love. Jesus. God, like Chris and I, he's got sex. I'm love. Like we got our. I don't even know.
Which came first?
No. All right. What else we got here? Pretty sure I wanted his shit. All right, there you go. Look, so you sold a T-shirt tonight. It looks like.
Hell yeah! Welcome to my bourbon journey after dark.
Bourbon journey after dark.
I think Floyd nailed it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my bourbon journey after dark.
Yep, that's it.
That's the version of my bourbon journey. Is that what we're going at?
That's not me. If you want that, that's HBR. That's you got after. That's after dark right there.
That's a Patreon, right?
Yeah.
It's Dusty Dan's got a V-neck under that pop collar.
Yeah, man. Hey.
That's it.
Yeah. You just shave the amount of like the dicky that like it covers up and stuff. You just leave it all there.
There's no shaving, baby. This is all hair right here.
Hey, actually, Keith Schmidt has an interesting point here because I'm wondering if bourbon gets to a ridiculous point where it's going to price itself out.
Oh man.
Well, it's not going to be terrible though on YouTube because we're all going to have OnlyFans accounts soon.
Yeah,
that's
particularly. Like I'm working on one now, so people can see me without a shirt on, and it's gonna be fantastic.
Yep, me and you both, Bill.
Fantastic.
I like it.
It's gonna be the tits.
Now, Keith, I hope you're wrong, man. But if we do end up all drinking Dickel, I hope that somebody has the decency to make a brand called "Oops, All Flintstones Vitamins."
I mean, it's not that it's depressing. It's just it's something to think about. I mean. You know, we all have.
I will not. I refuse to think about drinking only Cascade Hollow.
Yeah,
can't do it.
All right, so Bill, here you go from brand to brand, right here. What do you think of that?
From Robert?
Yeah.
MGP buying Luxco may bring us some Kentucky straight bourbon from MGP.
No. Was Luxco? Were they distilling?
No. So my personal thought. I have no inside information on this. My personal thoughts are that won't happen. Because I think that Luxco, everything that they can produce is going straight into their own brands. Yeah. I can't imagine they have excess capacity.
It'd be kind of cool though if they sat on some of those 10 to 13-year-old barrels that they were using for Rebel and just pocketed them away, and then in 5 years we come up with some more orphan barrel shit. That would be incredible.
I think the main question is like whether MGP will be able to draw shit from Lux Row.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is that Lux Row is like they can barely, based on what I know from talking to people from them, is that
the demand for Lux Row is greater than their ability to produce, which is
Yeah,
the reason that they merged, quote unquote, merged with MGP, is that they can't produce enough with this. And Lux Row Distillery is not a small distillery; it's a big deal. It's not a little craft thing; it's a big deal, and they still can't support the demand. So my opinion is that probably there won't be any MGP stuff on the market that is Kentucky distilled ever.
Yeah. And I also got to think
Kentucky distilled will be Lux Row. It'll be Ezra Brooks. It'll be Blood Oath. It will be Rebel, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I got to think there's got to be something in their contract with Heaven Hill that states that they cannot move those Heaven Hill barrels under an MGP flag.
My guess is that the MGP, the Heaven Hill stuff is already spoken for, but I don't think that anything distilled by Lux Row will ever hit the market as anything. I don't think it'll hit the market in anything in the near future.
Yeah. All right, so hey Bill, just real quick. This is kind of off topic. This is something that Scott and I think we're talking about before we went live. Is do you know if Wild Turkey sources any more than, say, Bardstown Bourbon Company? Like more?
They do not.
Okay.
From what I understand, speaking directly with people there, they will not source.
Okay.
So if someone says they have sourced Wild Turkey, they probably don't.
Okay.
There's a chance that it's something that Wild Turkey has gone out, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds or into too much stuff that I should say here, but there's times that they've gone out and said that we don't know that we're going to be able to support what we need next year, so can we buy some of your stuff?
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
It was just Scott and I
that is out there
before we went live. That's all.
Right. There's out there. I don't know.
Yeah, David.
I don't want anyone to go out and buy anything thinking that that's the case.
Yeah. David Jennings from Rubber 101 has touched upon this about there being kind of like that, like the turkey that's actually not turkey.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's the mash bill, but it's not turkey.
Yeah. Because you figure they have so much product sitting over there that you figure that they would be someone who would source. But
what's that, Chris? What'd you ask?
What products would be the turkey that's not turkey?
Like Bardstown Bourbon Company. Like when you see the Discovery series, they have the Wild Turkey mash bill in the
yes. Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought that you were saying that Wild Turkey was not able to meet their own demand and were sourcing from elsewhere.
Robert Heath. So didn't MGP buy them? So sorry. Go ahead there, Scott. You put that up there.
Yeah, no, it was that was what David was alluding to. That a lot of people say it's turkey, but it's actually not. It's this.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, at the end of the day, it can only be called turkey if Wild Turkey is distilling it, and it's. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can create their mash bill that's identical to turkey, but
it's out there. It's But
I'll say from my standpoint, having been on the side of buying barrels and stuff from people, what is more likely to happen is that Wild Turkey would have said at some point, we might have a shortage. I'll go to 4 different distilleries. Can we buy some of your stuff?
Yeah.
The chances that the other distillery would have distilled it to their mash bill is close to 0.
Yeah.
The chances that the other distilleries would have said, we'll sell you some of our stuff at our mash bill, probably 100%.
So here's the thing, though. With the batch size that Wild Turkey has, they could mix several hundred or 1,000 barrels into a batch, and it would still have a Wild Turkey profile based on the majority of it being turkey distillate.
Right. So I'm kind of I don't want to get too much into it because we have non-disclosure agreements.
Well, don't get in trouble, man. I mean,
don't get in trouble, man.
Yes, for sure.
I'm not going to say anything that's like weird, but like Wild Turkey isn't going to like. There may have been a time that they thought we'll have a shortage and they bought a bunch of barrels, but there's never a time that they will have tasted those barrels and said, these don't fit with our profile. So, but even if they don't taste with our profile, we're going to put them in our stuff.
No, man, if you're short, you're short, right? I mean,
they did.
If you need a spare tire, you're going to take whatever spare tire you got.
I'm just saying, if they went out and said, like, we need thousands of barrels, whatever, for a few years, and then they tasted them a couple of years later and said, this doesn't taste like Wild Turkey stuff, they're not going to use it. It will wind up somewhere else.
That's very interesting. I guess I never thought about like a distillery distilling something that doesn't work for what it is that they do and saying, like, this isn't necessarily bad. It may be very good, but this is not our profile. Therefore, we're going to offer this up to whoever it may be.
Actually, Bill, I was wondering if you can, and you don't have to get too far in the weeds on this either, because I know there's probably a lot of red tape that goes through all this, but I was wondering for the viewers, everybody that's watching, and, you know, just for us and myself in general, what's kind of the pathway dealing with barrel brokers? Like, how is that relationship? How does it work? How much risk is there involved? When you buy barrels, are you pretty much, you don't really know what's in it? So you said before, you bought a bunch of barrels. 2 of them were empty.
Up to you a little?
Did you know they were empty? Or you just, this is the stock we have. It's from a certain distillery. Take it or leave it. It's X amount of money. You have to be in charge of transporting it to wherever the fuck you're going to bring them and do whatever you're going to do with them. How does a barrel broker relationship work in today's bourbon time?
Great question.
Well, this would be better served if Bob and Tony, my partner, were on here, because he does most of the barrel stuff. But I think I can speak generally in general terms. In general terms, if you're buying barrels on the secondary market, which is what we do and anyone who sources does, you can get some representatory samples of those barrels. So you say, hey, we're going to buy 100 barrels. We need 10 samples. Just go randomly pick 10 of the barrels we're buying. Give us 10 of the samples. We'll taste them. We'll tell you if you like them or not. If some of them are empty, generally speaking, you eat it. You're just shit out of luck.
Wow.
In our case, for our first batch, Bob is my business partner is he's a fantastic relationship builder, and he had built these great relationships with our brokers, and he worked it out so that they gave us a break on our next purchase. But typically speaking, if you buy 100 barrels and 5 of them are empty or 10 of them are empty, you're just shit out of luck.
Wow.
You don't know. You just don't know. Other than that, it's a crapshoot. It really is. And there are probably, I don't know, I want to say 6 brokers who are well known kind of across the industry. And you can feel pretty confident that they're not going to screw you over.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Now, when you say you buy those 100 bottles, say you get your samples, you kind of, okay, we're going to buy that lot of 100. What happens next? Are they pretty much up to you now to go get them, bring them to where you got to get them to? You got to pay for the transportation. And that's,
so it depends. If you buy them, if you taste a representation sample of them, you have to decide what you want to do with them. So in our case, we typically like to leave them where they are because it's cheaper for us if Distillery XYZ made them 10 years ago and they're still in their warehouse. It's much less expensive for us to leave them in their warehouse and pay $2 a month to store them there than it is to bring them to our bottler and our processor and pay $20 a month or $30 a month to keep them on a pallet there. So we try to keep them where they are. That's typically the best way to do it. But you also have absolutely no control of what happens. When they come to your processor, once they're there, you're kind of out of luck. Like if you have 30 of them and 4 of them are empty.
Okay, so but don't they check those barrels every so often? Or I mean,
weigh them,
but you sound like a shady car dealership kind of guy. You know, like, hey,
well,
is no one going around on these barrels?
You like to
Because
think,
obviously they're sending you a sample pack of 10 barrels, but of course they're not going to choose the empty ones.
Right.
What do you mean? What do you mean you want to tell
Don't
yourself?
mind that one over there in the corner.
you like to think so, but I mean, when you're talking about when you're doing a barrel sample, one of the interesting things is everyone thinks it's the same thing as going to pick a private barrel with a liquor store where you pull the bung out and you hit the hammer on the barrel and the bung pops off and you stick the whiskey thief in. The reality is when you actually get a barrel sample at most places, they walk in with a power drill and they drill below the lowest steel rim,
Mm-hmm.
and they drill, and it's a little like 3/4 inch bit, and it puts out a little stream of whiskey, and they put it into a little 350 milliliter thing, and then they plug it and they give it to you. You have no idea if it's at the top of that bottom rung or at the bottom. You have no idea, literally. So they may literally give you a 350 milliliter sample that's the only 350 milliliters in that barrel. No idea.
That's crazy.
Hope you enjoyed
No
that.
idea. Once it gets to the place where we process it, it's a little bit different because we always have the bungs on the top of the barrel. So we store them palletized once we're re-aging them, I guess, in finished barrels. So we put the bungs on the top of the barrels. So they're the plastic bungs on top instead of the ones on the side, and they're stored upright on pallets. And we have our own whiskey thieves, and we'll go in there when we can. During COVID, it's very limited of what we can do. But we had some our stuff on our batch 6, our Kevin Collaboration 2 that everyone loved, and Minnick named his barrel finished whiskey of the year. The 2 or 3 cognac barrels, these massive cognac barrels, we stored them upright for the first time we got them there, and the tops warped within the first week that we got them to our bottler, and you could literally stick your hand in and touch the whiskey because the tops had warped. Dave's. There's no glue on them or anything like that. So the bottom line is all of this is fun. It's fun to talk about. You can talk to everyone about it, and they all love the stories. The bottom line is you don't know. It's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting when you're sourcing whiskey. You just don't know. It could be phenomenal. You could have 40 gallons in a barrel that you expect to have 25 in, or you could have 0. You just don't know.
The only certainty is risk.
Once you dump it, you can say like, hey, I thought this was going to be a $150 bottle. Winds up being a $200 bottle. And the only difference to you is $10. But once you figure in everything that multiplies on the $10, it's once it gets to the retailer, it's instead of $120, it's $200. So
There you go.
it's the whole thing is when we started the company, we thought it was going to be much simpler than it is. It's not simple at all. That's the bottom line. And everything you do adds cost, and every cost you add adds cost to the consumer. And it's double. Every dollar I spend is $2 to you if you're buying it off the shelf.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
one
crazy thing to me that I'm still trying to get my head around.
Yeah, that's one of those forever discussions I'm having with whiskey drinkers and bourbon drinkers. Why is a certain bottle so expensive? They just can't wrap their head around it because what we said before, when you can pick up a rare breed or something on the shelf for $40-$50, why am I paying $200-$250 for this? I'm like, because you don't realize the shit that most guys got to go through that are sourcing to put that in the bottle.
Yep.
And on top of that, if they're laying a finish on it, how expensive those cognac, Armagnac, sherry, whatever those barrels are to source. Get them stateside. Get them onto your palate. Move it over. Age it. Pay the taxes on it. You have no idea what that entails. That all adds to the course that nobody else always sees.
And that's exactly what brought me to like the whole like bourbon or whiskey and value thing was like the fact that a lot of people that say that's not worth it or I wouldn't pay that. I think more times than not, they haven't either had that or know anything about what it took to get that $170 bottle onto that shelf. So to arbitrarily say it's not worth that, that's where I have a problem with anybody saying that it's either it's not worth it or it's not good. Like you have to give me a little bit more than just like it's trash, or something like that. So
That's one of the most irritating things to me, Scott, is people that are like, well, there's no there's no whiskey in the world that's worth more than $120.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but have you ever had a whiskey that was worth more than $120? How many of you had, like, because they're fucking incredible. They're so good.
Yeah.
Because
my thing with it is, like Jason mentioned,
they're pimping terrible barrels. They're not out there taking 4-year distillate. They're out there taking 8 to 15-year-old stuff and taking them to these boutique bottlers. I'm looking at you, Bill. And they're then taking this incredible, I hate to use the word juice, so I won't, this incredible whiskey distillate, and they're going to do something with it or they're going to bottle it. And if it was shit whiskey, no one would order 10 or 15 or 100 of them.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Yeah, maybe for you, there's not a whiskey that's worth more than $120.
I mean, to be honest,
what Jason said earlier about like Rare Breed. Rare Breed's a great example. Rare Breed is a great whiskey. It's like what, 4 to 6 years old. I don't know, 6, 7 years old, maybe maximum.
There's some
turkey.
There's some apparently some 10 and 12 mixed in there too.
If Wild Turkey can put that out at what, $65, $70?
Yep.
Why would they sell it to me, a barrel of it? What do you think they would sell it to me for?
More than that.
1 million.
20% more than they could.
$1 Brazilian.
I would say
Wild Turkey's not going to sell an 6, 7, 8 year old barrel to me for the same price that they could bottle it for.
Exactly.
Because otherwise they just fucking bottle it and sell it themselves.
Yeah.
So they're going to sell it to me for a 30% premium, maybe 30%.
That's what my guess was. At least a 30 to 35% premium.
At least, and it depends on who it is. If they don't sell it often, it's going to be a lot more because people are like, oh, I can't get and do this often, so I'm going to sell it for 50% premium. I don't know. I can't tell you what they'd often sell it for. I mean, I don't know what
I feel like a lot of the whiskeys, yourself, Old Carter, when it says Kentucky straight bourbon and it's over $200, you got to look at that, because if it was a Kentucky bourbon and it wasn't Indiana, but it was from Kentucky and it was worth a fuck when it left Kentucky, they would have bottled it themselves and sold it for a much lower price. But instead, they're taking the cherry-picked barrels, they're offering them to you, the NDP, and you've got to buy them, put your own packaging together, employ your own people, find your own distribution. And so, I mean, yeah, let's just say, okay, well, yeah, we're sourcing from Heaven Hill. Okay, but you're not sourcing the dregs. You're sourcing the cream of the crop from those distillers, and then you're putting your own spin on it. And to me, it's a story, right? You have to be
you're not even taking into account like the Carters, who they're buying 3, 4, 5, however many barrels they're doing to make some of these blends, which will drive the price up even more because now you need more barrels to make these blends.
Yeah,
that aside from the single barrel, the 13s and those other ones that they do. So there's a lot of different factors that not a lot of people look at. They look at the price, they look at the brand, they give it a fuck you, or they say I have to have that.
Yeah.
So these companies that are selling the barrels, like they're looking at what they could get retail if they bottled that barrel.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter whether they're doing it 90 proof or barrel proof or whatever it is. They're looking at that's what we could get if we sold it today. What could we get more than that?
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a bidding process. So these barrel brokers, they bid on them. There's many of them out there, and they'll bid, and that price goes up until someone gets 500 barrels. And then they have these 500 barrels, and then Bobby, who's my business partner, is calling them and saying, hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? And they're like, oh, we got 500 barrels of 6-year-old blah, blah, blah Kentucky bourbon. It's $8,000 a barrel. We're like $8,000? There's only going to be 30 gallons in that barrel.
If you buy that, we still want that as a consumer. We still want that at $30.
Yeah. So I can't. Heaven Hill could put that out to $30. They could.
Yeah.
Because they
cost them a grand total. Like the barrel cost them about $200. The whiskey cost them like $5. I don't know. I don't know how much it costs them to do one barrel from these massive stills they have. But like it costs them, I don't know, $400 to do one barrel of bourbon. for us to buy it, it's $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, up to $8,000, depending on the age and who distilled it. So when you talk about value, which is what this whole night was about, I can't tell you what your value, what is a good value for you. I don't know. I can only tell you that, like, when we buy the whiskey and we finish the whiskey, we take our own costs and we add a whatever margin that we think is fair. And that's what it costs us to the distributor. Roughly twice that is what you pay retail in Kentucky. Different in other states. But roughly that's how it works. And most people work that way. Some people just randomly pick a price out of the blue sky and say, hey, I'm going to charge you $900 a bottle. I don't know. But most people, there's not this idea of, everyone talks about value. Well, I can get Elijah Craig at this. Well, great, go buy Elijah Craig. I can't compete with them because I didn't make it. If I could make it, it would be $30 a bottle. But I can't do that. You know, it's just value versus retail price are two very different things, especially when you're talking about producers versus non-producers.
Exactly. And
I can't true that up for you. I can only tell you that, like, if $200 is too much for you, then my whiskey is probably not in your wheelhouse. If $150 is too much for you, consider us. If $40 is your wheelhouse, I got a lot of great recommendations for you on any of these price ranges. I got a lot of great recommendations of what I love and what I think is great for you. Go for it.
All right,
Bill,
so let me ask
you, Bill, on a macro level is independents that truly care about the sport are not screwing their customers, and B, the majority of what you're seeing on an MSRP is not coming from the manufacturer of the whiskey, regardless of how big or small. It's coming from the 3-tier system. And so, you know, guys that care about whiskey, that are putting their best product out there, are not trying to ream people. And that's crucial, right? Because you see these brands that are $200, $150, $250, $300. For the very large part, those guys are trying to put their best effort out there to support you, the enthusiast, you, the consumer.
Correct. And that's exactly the point I always try to make. It's not them. It's the prices you have to look at secondary and liquor store owners that are taking advantage of the FOMO, and those guys that are, and us, the whiskey enthusiasts, that's willing to pay a premium for something new and different. Those are the assholes, not the ones that are working hard to put out quality product that's new and different.
I do want to say one thing in defense of everyone else in the 3-tier system is, like, if there wasn't a 3-tier system, would it be significantly cheaper for you? I don't know, because if I had to pay for a sales force in Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and Georgia, would my whiskey be a lot cheaper than it is right now? Because mind you, I'd have to pay for that sales force. They'd have to go out to every liquor store in those 4 states that we distribute to, plus the 2 online sites we do. And then they would sell to a liquor store who would then want to mark it up again, because, again, they're not doing this for free. So, like, from at a very, very small level, do I hate the 3-tier system? I'm like, well, I really don't want to have my own sales force going out to liquor stores. So how bad is this? I don't know. I don't know how that would be if I had my own salespeople versus a distributor who has their salespeople. I don't know.
My issue was never with the 3-tier system, you know, as a whole. My issue has always been the lack of accountability within the 3-tier system.
Yep.
No accountability from distilleries. Yep. No accountability from,
because it's kind of like the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, and no accountability from liquor store owners. Well,
it's he said, she said, right? I mean,
I see what you mean. Like, once it gets into their hands, they can charge whatever they want.
Exactly. Listen,
and I can't control that, and the distributor can't control that, other than not giving them something the next time around.
It's America. It's capitalism. You're gonna make the most you can on a bottle because you know your market and what your market is gonna pay for a particular bottle. I have a
Todd's a great person. Todd.
Yeah.
Tell us about this. Tell us from the retail side when you set your prices.
Yeah, Todd's the perfect guy to talk to.
Yeah. it used to be, like I said, I live in Frankfurt, and it used to be like 35% of the store I used to work at. And then, like I said, someone bought it and someone got in his ear and told him about the secondary market. And now, like, I could go up there tomorrow and I'm pretty sure there's some Pappy 12 for like $700,
Mm-hmm.
which is just absolutely crazy to me.
Yeah.
I would rather someone do like the lottery thing than throw that price out there. It just really saddens me.
So I
waited in that lottery at Red Dot more than once with you, I think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been seeing this thing, and Todd, you can kind of give me feedback on this. I've been seeing this thing with some stores. I don't think a lot of stores are adopting this quite yet, but I've seen this thing where stores are, if you get an allocated item or you buy something that's highly coveted, whether it be a BTAC, a birthday bourbon, whatever it may be, you have to crack it open in the store before you leave. Is that
like that?
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah. It's basically
That's
it's making sure that the customers that are getting these bottles are, they're trying to make sure that they're not just going to take them and flip them on the secondary. And
in the parking lot is what you're saying.
Honestly,
Exactly.
all you need to do is like take like a marker and like put a little something on the tag, and then all of a sudden all the flippers are gonna be like, I don't want a fucking bottle that's got a marker on it. It's like, it's just like crazy with all that. So like, I mean, anything that like will deter the people that are just constantly flipping bottles to create the crazy prices. I mean,
it's funny. Anytime I sign a bottle, I get the exact same response. So like, I feel
and it's not just Buffalo
Please
Trace.
don't fuck this bottle up, Bill.
I'm
I'm
saying,
sign my something, Bill, dude. Oh,
yeah, that was the problem. Like I had this Bill Straub guy. He did sign this. It was $200. The value went down to $100.
Again, guys, like, I probably get more flack than most people just because of some of these older bottles I buy. I received some emails that would probably your guys' heads would spin if you saw what I received, just because I do buy some of these older bottles and I spend.
I don't think so. We've seen them all.
I don't think so. Calling me crazy and I don't think it's worth that and all that. But again, we go back to what we talked about today, is just that's what you see, the value of today. I mean, where else are you going to find something that's pre-prohibition? You're not going to go find that in a store. I'm sorry. Yeah. Now again, is it is it as good as what's being produced today? Probably not, but it's still, it's good to me. And that's what I find value in. And I like the history.
I don't think it's better. It may just be different.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Todd, what were you going to say? You were going to say it's not just Buffalo Trace.
It's not just Buffalo Trace. I mean, some of the stores here locally I'll say the one I used to work at has just gotten kind of crazy about a lot of stuff. Like the Henry McKenna 10 is, it's well above, the price, and it's gotten ridiculous. And it's sad because Kentucky is the bourbon state. Well, I mean, I know there's a lot of good products coming out from other states, and I'm really enjoying some of the other states. But
yep,
it brings a lot of people to this town. And the store I used to work at used to be like the store. Buffalo Trace employees would be like, "Hey, go check at Red Dot. You can find our products there." And it's not that case anymore. It's like you go up there, you're going to see some crazy prices. I mean,
I have a store in New York that I work very closely with, and they help me get bottles. I've built a relationship, a rapport over many years. That's really a good way to get bottles, which I tell everyone. But they get Pappy Van Winkle every year, and it's the New York market. So I always beg them. I'm like, listen, are you going to be able to ever sell me a Pappy close to retail? And they said, we can't, because everybody else around us is selling it for well above market price, well above retail price. So we're talking, like you said, the 12-year, $800, the 15-year, $1,200, and then the 20 and the 23-year are well in the stratosphere here. And the unicorn piss, the old Rip Van Winkle, is still selling for $400. And they can't even do it, for me, because they know that they can get that premium wherever they are.
But but let me ask you this. So is there the reverse of that? So if let's say they sell that to you for retail, does that pay off for them in the long run? Meaning you buy, or let's just say somebody else comes in and now says, you know what, these guys really did me a solid. You know, he sold me this bottle for whatever retail. I'm just going to be loyal to these guys, buy all my beer.
That's a difference between a friendly businessman and then a smart businessman.
Smart, yeah, yep.
But does
the friendly businessman will give you that bottle for retail if you're a long, loyal customer and you're coming in every week and you're spending money. And there's a lot of stores like that. I'm not going to say every store is bad. There's a lot of great stores, great owners that do that for customers. But then you have to be if I'm a business owner and I'm in the heart of New York City where I know people are walking with shitloads of money in their pocket, I'm going to put a Pappy Van Winkle on the shelf for as much as I can get because I know some asshole is going to walk through the door, some idiot that wants to have that on the shelf, and they're going to pay whatever premium I put. Maybe I do my research. Maybe I look at the other stores around me. That guy has Pappy 23 for about $4,000. That guy has it for $3,000. I can get by with pricing it at $2,500. Let's see if somebody will come in and buy it.
But here's my question: is that if that guy has it for $4,000, why does he have it for $4,000? Why is it still sitting there? Because okay, granted, maybe somebody comes and pays that, but I mean, is the loyalty factor bigger than like the monetary greed factor? Like, to sell it to you for MSRP, does that really pay off more in the long run than capitalizing in the short term?
It's a good question, Scotty.
It's interesting from our standpoint because there's a store in Louisville when we had our very first release back in 2019. It was $200 retail value, and they sold it for $600. They had 4 bottles. And it sat on, like, 3 of the 4 sold immediately. It came out right around April of 2019. And the other one sat on the shelf for another year and didn't sell. But then Derby came around.
Yep.
And this was downtown, and 90% of the people came in there were tourists who came from out of town to Louisville for the Derby. And when they came here, they said, what can I get here that I can't get in New York or in New Jersey or in Michigan or wherever I'm from? And they would say, this Foregate, $600 a bottle. They would sell it to them, and those people would buy it. It was worth it to them to do that than it was to buy, 100 different Henry McKenna's and sell them for 10% or whatever it was, 20% over whatever they bought them for. It was a better deal for them, and we hated it. We talked to our distributor, and we're like, hey, don't let them sell this for $600. And our distributors kept saying, they're good customers of ours. We're not going to tell them what they can or can't sell this shit for. They bought it from us for our price. And we asked them for it. It's theirs from then on. So let them do their thing. And we were like, okay, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
And that gets into my first point with the lack of accountability. Nobody gives, no, we're not going to do it because they're a good customer. The distillery can't say shit. They don't want to get wrapped up in it. It's just, like you said, it's the wild, wild west of pricing. Who gives a shit? Everybody's making money. Let it fly.
If you were making a hat,
if the distributors policed it at all,
Stevie made a hat from Ash and Drum, and it was a great hat, and you were looking for someone who would be like, hey, I need you to sell this online for me. And they said, okay, how much does your hat cost? Well, I can sell it to you for $20. Okay, I can sell it to someone else for $25. And then that hat, you saw it online somewhere. It was so popular, you made 1,000 of those hats, but someone bought 20 of them. They were selling them for $500. It's really, how do you go to them and say you can't sell them for $500? Like, well, I bought them. They're mine now. I can sell them whatever I want, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't like it. Like, I don't want them to sell all of our stuff for $600. But, like, at the same token, they bought our whiskey. They can sell for whatever the F they want to. That's the way the free market works. Once I sell it to a distributor, it's on the distributor to enforce their retail pricing, right? I can then talk to the distributor and say, hey, man, these guys are gouging it. And sometimes there have been times when people have gouged it, and we've gone out and said, hey, and you guys do something about this? And they'll go out and call them and they'll say, hey, if you keep doing this, you're not going to get any Pappy this year. You're not going to get any whatever this year.
Yeah.
And the guys will, bring it down or whatever. But at some point, these people have bought the bottles from our distributor. They can sell for whatever they want to. It's theirs. I can't make them do anything else except hopefully not get them more product down the line.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's the way sales and markets work.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't tell you what you have
I
to sell.
know Chris has to go. Chris, thanks for jumping in. I
Hey
appreciate
guys,
it. buddy.
I hate to leave at
Thanks.
such an amazing low point, but I got to roll. Thank y'all so much for having me on.
Thanks,
it's been a
buddy.
great conversation. Bill, looking forward to those samples. Love you all.
I mean,
Love you, man.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah.
I got to take off here too. So I got 4 minutes.
But distributors don't police. That's the biggest problem. They don't police anything.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things where I don't know how much they need to. They should police it. Like I
Okay,
want,
well, here,
I
okay,
want
Bill,
our
let me ask you this.
stuff to come out.
So,
when our stuff, when we say it's a $200 bottle, we base that based on standard industry markups, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much that retail place actually pays for the rent. Maybe they pay an exorbitant amount. I don't know whether or not all of their people have the certifications as a certified bourbon steward, and it costs them an extra $1,000 a year for each person. I don't know all of that. So I don't know whether they should charge $200 or $250 or $220. I just know what kind of the average is, and that's our MSRP. So I can't tell you that you can't charge $250 for our whiskey that we say should be $200. I can't tell you that because I don't know what goes into your $250 thing. 9 times out of 10, it's probably just gouging.
well, okay, if that's a good point. So if you go into a liquor store and you see, a 4-gate up on the shelf, you're like, yes, that's awesome. And then you see it says $5.99.99. What do you think when you see that?
I walk out and just like, this is ridiculous. The best thing I can say is that there was a mistake with one of our distributors, and we had one of our whiskeys was supposed to be retail priced at $150, but they just priced it the same as a lot of our other stuff at $199 when they sold it to the retailer. So they sold it to the retailer at the same price they would sell anything that should be $199. And I went in there and I saw that and I was like, hey, that's out of whack. Like I don't want that sold for that price because it shouldn't be. Like you shouldn't see that next to that and say they're the same price because they're different whiskeys. They're priced differently for a reason, right? From our standpoint. So I sent them an email. I talked to the owner. Everything was fine. I sent them an email and they sent it to our distributor. Their distributor's like, oh my gosh, it was an error in our system. Because they had they both had foundation in the name. It wasn't supposed to be the same price for both too, because we've had 3 batches of things that say foundation in the name, and they gave them credits on. I think they gave them credits on something else they bought, but I went in a few weeks later, and the price was down $50 retail, and that's what we wanted, and I can do that when I see it. But likewise, if I go into a place and something that's, for example, some of our original foundation batches, which you can't find anymore, they may charge you $300 for them. I can't tell you can't do that. I can go back to our distributor and say, hey, they're gouging you for the price. And the distributor will say, sorry, they're a really small store, and that's the only bottle they've ever gotten a 4-gate. They're going to charge you $500 for it.
Yep.
It's the only thing you can get in that town. I can't do something. I can't tell them you can no longer sell to that store. Like that's not my client. I can't do that.
Yeah, I suppose you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, I suppose, with that kind of stuff. So
in a way, yeah. So we price based on we look at the standard markups and we say this is what the price should be. So we publish that, and that's the best thing we can possibly do. Put it on our website, put it in our press releases, and say it should cost you $200. It should cost you $175. It should cost you $150 because that's the best thing you can do to hold a store accountable. Is you can say, hey, they say the MSRP is $175, but you're charging $225.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah,
I can't make you charge less because you bought it. You can sell for anything you want legally.
Yeah.
We're out of the picture here.
Well,
As I
that's
said,
the same thing. I mean,
MSRP it's a myth anymore, though. I think in a lot of cases.
It's a guess based on standard markups.
Two comments before we I know Bill has to go before we kind of sign off here. Tim Gorgeous in the chat. Until consumers start being smarter with their purchases, prices, and understanding that they do have some control, outrageous pricing will continue. I totally agree with that. And also just below that, Ben says 200 going for 250 isn't the issue. 200 going for 600 to 800 is.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my biggest issue with where the bourbon market has gone. It's not a $50 or $100 markup. It's now a $400, $600, $800 markup.
Yeah,
That's fair.
And the problem with that is that when you have the one guy who's willing to pay $800, that continues to drive that secondary market, and that's the problem. So, but all right, so we're 2.5 hours in officially. Guys, everybody who joined tonight, thank you so much. I appreciate. I mean, this was where I was kind of hoping everything would ultimately go to. Before we sign off, does everybody want to share a little bit about where they can find them, their product, wherever it may be?
Start with Bill.
FourGateWhiskey.com. That's whiskey with an EY because that's the way we spell it here in America.
Yeah. Well, you're not trying to insult Maker's Mark at all, are you?
I have no comment.
Yeah. All right, we'll skip. Let's go to Dusty. Dusty, where can all of these fine people who've been watching for 2.5 hours find Dusty Dan's whiskey reviews?
You can find me on the secondary market. You can find me at Dusty Dan's whiskey reviews on YouTube. I obviously I'm not the most entertaining person in the world, but I will try to give you the best damn reviews I can. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews as well. I do plan on holding a live stream next week where I'm going to crack open a pre-prohibition whiskey. So please stay tuned to that.
Can we get samples? Just saying.
I think I can make that work, Bill.
Just asking for a friend.
I think I can make that work for you.
Todd, do you want to share your home address with everyone?
If you're in Frankfurt, you can find me at Arsenal 4040. Pictures of my kids, pictures of bourbons. So I'm on Instagram.
Equally important.
Yeah. So it's been an honor to be on this panel tonight.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about the pre-prohibition bourbon you're going to send all of us.
Actually, both Jason and Dan owe me whiskey, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Todd, just send everybody a bunch of Fourgate stuff. You'll have to figure out where or how you're going to get a hold of that stuff, but just send everybody
I do have access. He is married to my cousin, so.
All right, last but not least, this little small channel that we all know as the Small Little Mash and Drum. Can you somehow tell us where we can find you? Just give us your home address, your social security number, all of that good stuff, please.
Yeah, no, I will tell you what though. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Mash and Drum.
Yep.
Nancy freaking Fraley coming on.
Yeah, buddy.
We're gonna be literally blending a cigar batch on live tomorrow on the channel. So
very cool.
You want to learn about the art of blending from one of the best blenders in bourbon today and whiskey today? Join tomorrow night's live stream. Bring your notebooks. We're going to learn a shitload of information tomorrow from Nancy. We'll have some fun too. Be talking. She's a drummer too, so we're going to be talking some favorite drummers. But really, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the art of blending with Nancy Fraley tomorrow night. Do not miss it.
And that's when are we going to have a Mash and Drum off with all the other drum and bourbon channels?
I think we're trying to work on something, but the audio and everything else is me and so Drums and Drams, the other drum channel here in Columbus that tried to start a channel after I did. I'm only kidding.
Drums, you play, then he plays. It's all good.
Shots fired.
No, he's a good dude. He actually came over last week. We were drinking some really good whiskey and just talking some ideas on actually how we could collaborate and possibly do Trev Wilson, who's also a YouTuber. He's a drummer, so we might do something with it. So yeah,
I'm off.
Yeah, it'll be a good one. That's tomorrow 9 Eastern, right? Tomorrow 9 Eastern.
Tomorrow 9 Eastern. Yeah, Nancy Fraley. Also, we're gonna have Eric Waite Whiskey Studies. Eric Waite has a great channel. It's more Scotch focused, but he is he's kind of like, he's me in many ways when it comes to studying and being a pretty, large geek about all this stuff. And he had a lot of questions for Nancy, and they've been connecting. And so I figured, you know what, let's all get together and try to make it the geekiest stream on YouTube ever in WhiskeyTube. So
cool. Awesome. It'll be a good time. Thanks to you guys, everybody who joined tonight, everybody in the chat. Thanks for sticking with us. It was kind of what I hoped for. It was what I really wanted to get a little bit more. And I knew by having Bill on, he had a lot of the inside, information with a lot of what was going on, and just the direct information that he had. So
yeah, we peppered you with a lot of questions, Bill. So we appreciate your
we do, and that's what I was kind of hoping for, was that we could get some of that stuff out of you, and you kind of fill a lot of people in and let them know a little bit more about like why there are $200 bottles out there versus $40 bottles or whatever it is. So guys, thanks so much for joining tonight. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much. Check out Jason's stream tomorrow. Dusty's coming in a week or so.
Yep,
a week. So Todd, he'll be leaving his social security number here pretty soon. Bill Straub, you can find him all over the place. Foregate Whiskey Company. Everybody, thanks for joining tonight. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having us.